My sister-in-law had gestational hypertension. My brother consulted an AI doctor, which claimed that taking medication would cause fetal deformities. In my past life, I gathered solid medical evidence and convinced my sister-in-law to take the medication in secret. She safely gave birth to a healthy nephew. Yet, whenever my nephew caught a cold or coughed, my sister-in-law would blame me for making her take the medicine. I would then be verbally abused by my mother and physically beaten by my brother. Later on, my nephew grew up to be good for nothing and couldn't find a wife. In a fit of rage, they teamed up and killed me, then ran off with my life savings to live it up. When I opened my eyes again, my brother was waving a list of drug side effects generated by AI, shouting, "You can't take this, it causes birth defects and miscarriages." I agreed. My brother has a point. Who are you going to trust? An AI or a veterinarian? One, damn right, he's a goddamn veterinarian, not a people doctor. My brother threw the prescription on the ground in a rage. Do they really think we're that easy to fool? These days, you can just look it up online and know everything. I could be a doctor myself. My sister-in-law, suffering from pregnancy-induced hypertension, was holding her dizzy head. Are you really not going to take the medicine? After getting a clear answer from my brother, my sister-in-law turned her hopeful gaze toward me. I simply ignored her and looked the other way. My sister-in-law cleared her throat and asked me what we should do. My eyes widened in surprise. Didn't my brother just say, "What else is there to do, bro? Don't they say pregnancy brain lasts for 3 years? Is that what's going on with sis?" My brother retorted, "Exactly, your sister-in-law is just being naive. She never had high blood pressure before the pregnancy, and now suddenly she does. Give me a break." "Alright, Ginny, you really do need to go and calm down for a bit." Sister-in-law Ginny glanced over at our mother, who was brewing herbs not far away, and had no choice but to lie down and rest. Mother completely agreed with my brother, insisting on using so-called traditional remedies to treat the headaches and dizziness. My sister-in-law sipped the bitter herbal medicine, looking at me with a wounded expression, trying to harm me again. In my past life, I helped her so much. Yet she showed no gratitude. Instead, she stabbed me in the back when my nephew came down with a minor illness. It was their own coddling that turned my nephew into an unruly, notorious brat who couldn't find a wife, and for that, they ganged up to murder me, then took my hundreds of thousands in savings to live it up. I'm done being the sucker. If my brother is foolish enough to use AI to search for drug side effects, then I won't bother trying to talk sense into him anymore. Since he's so clever and thinks he can play doctor, he can deal with the consequences, too. My sister-in-law took several big gulps from the bowl Mom was holding for her. Staring at the dark herbal concoction in the bowl, she finally asked me, "Belle, can you look up online what happens with gestational hypertension if you don't take medication?" I blinked my naive eyes. "Huh, what do you mean? Isn't what you're holding right there the medicine?" My sister-in-law was speechless for a moment. After a pause, she said, "I read that not taking blood pressure medication for gestational hypertension can lead to complications. It can even cause eclampsia, convulsions, collapsing on the ground." It sounds terrifying. A chill ran down my spine. So, in our past life, it wasn't that my sister-in-law didn't understand, she just didn't dare to defy my brother. They were just setting me up to be the scapegoat, the sacrificial lamb. I feigned a look of sudden understanding and called out loudly for my mother, "Mom, I heard that moxibustion on the navel with mugwort can also lower blood pressure. Why don't you give it a try on Sis-in-Law?" Mom was more than happy to help. She took out several sticks of mugwort and started the treatment right away. The smoke made Sis-in-Law's eyes water, and she started coughing repeatedly. I kept my distance to avoid getting smoked out myself. My brother even praised me for being sensible. During dinner, my sister-in-law made a passive-aggressive comment about the moxibustion incident. "The smoke made me cough non-stop. That can't be good for the baby, right?" The brother who had praised me stopped. Instead, he ordered me to forget about studying this summer and focus entirely on taking care of my sister-in-law in every possible way. I was genuinely grateful, but I immediately promised to take good care of my sister-in-law. After all, he's Mom's first grandson. Mom beamed from ear to ear, praising me for being so thoughtful. "It's only right that you look after Ginny, but don't let it interfere with your studies. Get into a good university and marry well. Then your nephew can really benefit from it." I replied with a smile, "Of course, I'll take care of all my nephew's needs from now on, my brother bragged. My son still has to study abroad. The cost of it, I'll cover it. My sister-in-law said with a sarcastic tone. Don't make promises you can't keep. Say that again. I'm recording this. I said it again, right into the camera. My sister-in-law was overjoyed. This is solid evidence. Evidence is worthless. I have the money, but you won't live long enough to spend it. 3. After just 2 days of taking the herbal medicine, my sister-in-law's blood pressure actually went down. She was over the moon. My brother, full of himself, brought up AI again and launched into another round of effusive praise. This thing has blown up overseas. The whole world is going crazy for it. The real pros are even selling AI tutorials online. People like us should just make good use of it to make life easier. My sister-in-law nodded in agreement. You're right, she said. The money spent on doctors and medicine would be better used buying some new clothes. Not 2 days later, my sister-in-law began experiencing dizziness and headaches again, over the course of a recurring, 2-week period. Her blood pressure kept rising. Then, she suddenly noticed swelling in her ankles. Mom had a perfectly good explanation. That's just how pregnancy is. It's completely normal. No matter what my sister-in-law said, the reply was always the same 2 words. It's fine. She stopped talking. Another week passed, and the swelling had spread. It crept up from her calves to her thighs, getting worse by the day. She couldn't sit still any longer and turned to an AI, inputting all her details. The response was unanimous. She had to take medication for her gestational hypertension. She was stunned, but she was also relieved. It was still early in the pregnancy, and medication could manage it. To justify taking her medication, my sister-in-law posted a picture of pregnancy-induced hypertension complications in our 4-person family group chat. Brother, Mom, what does this mean? I'm just here for the show. My sister-in-law told it like it was. My brother quickly replied, what does that have to do with your high blood pressure? Don't go believing all that random nonsense you read online, especially on that one app. It's full of scams. It's just a bunch of ads, group chats, and people pushing bogus supplements. Don't fall for it. Not to be outdone, my sister-in-law shot back. I read it on that AI thing you're always talking about. My brother told her to send him a screenshot. A few seconds later, he lost his temper. Are you out of your mind? Look at the question you're asking. You say you have gestational hypertension and edema. Who diagnosed that? You did. You don't have hypertension. For goodness sake. The swelling is because you've been eating too much salt lately. Cut back on the salt and soak your feet more often. And then he tacked on. And pregnant women should look at their phones less. My brother is a real armchair expert. Both my mom and I expressed our agreement in the group chat. My sister-in-law behaved herself for a week, at least for the time being. But she had such bad headaches every day, she felt like banging her head against a wall. The swelling area expanded, and the recovery was painfully slow. It leaves a noticeable dent when pressed. She began to seek help. My sister-in-law called over her brother Zane and his wife Bess from her maiden family. Zane and Bess came in with a confrontational air, clearly spoiling for a fight. My sister went through the immense and difficult ordeal of giving birth to your family's child. Her health is just as important as the baby's. If she's sick, she needs to take her medicine. How could you not let her? Reed, you promised me you'd take good care of Ginny. What kind of way is this to act? Her brother offered a placating smile. Hey now, brother-in-law, you don't have the full picture. Don't get so worked up. Even her sister-in-law chimed in with a reproach. Brother, don't be so harsh. We didn't ask you here to fight, and certainly not to yell at my husband. Can't you just talk this out properly? Zane was speechless. Bess rolled her eyes. Ginny, we don't appreciate that. We came to help, and you're throwing your own brother under the bus, missing your husband already. Her sister-in-law was also at a loss for words. You said it yourself. He's my brother. How I talk to my own brother is none of your business. Got it. Bess plopped down on the sofa in a huff. Fine. Let's see what brilliant ideas you two come up with then. I fanned the flames. My sister-in-law is pregnant. You're an outsider. Get out of my house and stop upsetting her. Bess was furious. Her face flushed with anger, and she dragged Zane towards the exit. Ginny, you remember what you said today. Don't you dare come begging to us later. I shot back. Please, just get out. You're stinking up the whole place. After they left, my brother praised me for what I just said. Who does Zane think he is? acting like the big boss. I heard he's raising pigeons, but he couldn't even be bothered to make some pigeon soup for his pregnant sister. What a lousy excuse for a brother. Good riddance. My sister-in-law chimed in. Exactly, I've never been able to stand my brother's condescending attitude. Scolding me when we were kids was bad enough. But now he's lecturing my husband, and even Bess is getting in on it. What a load of crap. Listening to them vent was incredibly satisfying. My sister-in-law's character is as awful as ever. When others help her, she repays them by kicking them when they're down. How despicable. 5. My sister-in-law called over her best friend Nora and poured her heart out, looking utterly miserable. Nora's face was full of concern. Then just take the medicine in secret. My husband keeps a very tight leash on me. If he found out I was sneaking medicine, he'd probably cut off my allowance. I don't have a job or a salary, so having no money to spend would be the absolute worst. Nora frowned. So what are you going to do? My sister-in-law kept sighing, not offering any solutions, and just said, "You're my best friend, you're my only hope." Nora agreed without hesitation. All right, I'll talk to Reed. That evening, when my brother came home, he gave his wife a thorough scolding. They say you shouldn't air your dirty laundry in public, but you were the first to spread it. You sent Nora to lecture me. You've completely humiliated your husband. I'm cutting off your allowance. My sister-in-law hurriedly explained. No, I didn't ask Nora to talk to you about this. I had no idea. Nora came to you on her own. I even told her I'm taking traditional Chinese medicine to lower my blood pressure. My brother understood and picked up his phone to give Nora a piece of his mind. He cursed her out from head to toe, sparing no insult, and then he added, "My wife said she can't believe you're that kind of person. She's cutting ties with you." Nora didn't believe it and insisted that her sister-in-law say it herself. Under her husband's stern glare, the sister-in-law delivered the message about ending their friendship. After hanging up the phone, the brother, feeling immensely pleased, rewarded his wife with a hefty red envelope. My sister-in-law seized the opportunity to ask for an extra $1,000 in spending money. Just like that, she wasn't even upset about losing her best friend, but the joy from the extra cash was quickly overshadowed by a growing physical discomfort. She would have to come up with another plan. 6. I'm bleeding, get me to the hospital, quick. My sister-in-law was screaming from the bathroom. Mom was so frightened she immediately ran outside. Hoping to ask a neighbor to take my sister-in-law to the hospital, I stopped Mom and said, "Mom, don't panic, think about it. You just slaughtered a chicken today and were about to cook it when sister-in-law started bleeding." Mom calmed down a bit. "What are you getting at? Isn't there a fortune teller in the village? Let's ask her to come take a look." All right. After the fortune teller, Granny Wang, arrived. She stared at my sister-in-law for a long moment. She lit a talisman, dropped it into a cup, took a big gulp, and spat it right in my sister-in-law's face. Oh no, oh no. She stumbled back several steps. A pregnant woman who has seen bloodshed brings a curse upon the household. Mother's face turned deathly pale. What do we do? If the house is cursed, my whole family will suffer. My sister-in-law looked as if she had a mouthful of words she couldn't bring herself to say, her expression turning as sour as if she'd swallowed a fly. Granny Wang's eyes darted shrewdly. "I have these prayer beads, blessed by a monk. If each person in your family wears one, you can avoid this impending bloodshed." "How much?" 5,000 each. For 4, that's 20,000. Mom was so frightened she immediately went to get the money. "Ginny, dear, I haven't saved much. This was meant for when you have the baby. I'll only be able to give you 1,000 then." My sister-in-law, who clung to money for dear life, quickly intervened. "No, you can't give it to her. It's a scam." Seeing her prize about to slip away, Granny Wang claimed my sister-in-law was possessed by an evil spirit. At a stalemate, my sister-in-law finally had no choice but to come clean. "That's chicken blood." Old Mrs. Wang was thrown out. Mother was furious and gave my sister-in-law a thorough scolding. Knowing she was in the wrong, my sister-in-law didn't say much in her defense. After that scene my sister-in-law made, whenever she started complaining about an ache here or a pain there, nobody paid her any attention. The story of the boy who cried wolf is a timeless lesson. 7. Time flew by, and my sister-in-law's belly had grown noticeably. Mom wouldn't let her lift a finger. Her days consisted of eating, then lying around on her phone until she was tired enough to sleep, only to wake up and eat again. after her morning sickness subsided in the first trimester, her appetite came back with a vengeance, and she didn't hold back on what she ate. When it came time for the glucose tolerance test, my brother used AI to look up how it works. He laid down the law again, saying, just buy a test kit and do it at home. Going to the hospital to drink that stuff and get 3 vials of blood drawn. That's just asking for trouble, my sister-in-law agreed. I've read some pregnant women say they vomited because of this test, and that's on the milder side. Some even passed out. The matter was settled just like that. To get a good reading on the test strip, my sister-in-law cut out all carbs for the week before the test and walked over 10,000 steps every day. Her fasting blood sugar was even a bit on the low side for the hospital's glucose tolerance test. She only had eggs and milk beforehand, and her 1-hour and 2-hour postprandial readings came out perfectly normal. She's a real genius, isn't she? Gestational hypertension and gestational diabetes hit her at the same time. The good times didn't last. In her 3rd trimester, my sister-in-law suddenly had a mental breakdown, suffered an epileptic seizure, collapsed to the floor convulsing, and lost consciousness. My mother called for a shaman. But the moment the shaman saw her lying on the ground foaming at the mouth, he was terrified, told us to get her to a hospital immediately, and made a hasty exit. They rushed to the nearest hospital, where my sister-in-law was immediately taken into the operating room for an emergency C-section. The condition of both the mother and the fetus is critical. We must prepare for the worst. A family member needs to sign this consent form. My mother turned deathly pale and cried out, "Save the baby. Save the baby, forget about the mother, just save the child." The doctor who delivered the news was brusque and urged, "Sign it, now." Just as the brother picked up the pen to sign, his mother pushed him aside. "We won't sign unless you guarantee the baby's safety." The doctor was utterly exasperated. "Have you been watching too many TV dramas? There's no such guarantee. We'll do everything we can." The mother insisted the doctor promise he could definitely save her grandson. The doctor looked at me helplessly and asked, "Are you a family member?" My mother stepped forward and interjected, "She's not, she can't speak for us." I obediently made myself invisible, careful not to draw any attention or trouble. That was exactly what I had been hoping for. Another senior doctor arrived and immediately reprimanded her. "The mother is fighting for her life in the operating room, and you, as her mother-in-law, want to give up on her. Have you considered how your son would feel? Can you be by his side for the rest of his life? You might be able to live without a daughter-in-law, but can your son live without a wife?" The mother was left speechless, with no way to defend herself. The waiting area was filled with other patients' families, and they all felt a deep sense of empathy. She started scolding Mom. Mom was mortified. She took my hand and led me away. My brother signed the papers. Everything now hinged on the surgery's outcome. I watched as Mom kept her hands clasped together, murmuring something under her breath. It must have been a prayer for her eldest grandson's well-being, or something along those lines. "I'm afraid I'm going to disappoint you, Mom. 8. It's a boy, 10 pounds and 2 ounces. My nephew is here." However, the nurse didn't bring the baby out. She took him straight to the incubator. My mother started shouting, "Where's my grandson? Let us see him." The nurse explained, "The baby's lungs are underdeveloped and there's still fluid in them. He needs to be monitored now, or he could develop breathing problems." "That's a load of crap. I think you're just trying to switch my big, healthy grandson with someone else," the mother insisted adamantly. "Hospitals are known for swapping babies. Ours is a little boy. Don't you lose him." The nurse didn't want to argue further. "Also, the mother is not doing well. You'll have to wait a while longer," my brother pleaded. "Nurse, you have to save my wife." Mom even gave my brother a light punch, saying, "Look at you. You're not acting like a father at all." We waited another 2 hours before my sister-in-law came out. It was a cerebral hemorrhage. She had to undergo brain surgery. After waking up, I couldn't even speak clearly. My mother and brother went to make a scene, claiming the doctor botched the surgery, to better argue their case. My brother even had me do real-time AI translation, that is, to record everything the doctor said and then have the AI refute it point by point. "Count me out of this." My brother gave me a shove. "You're useless," the doctor patiently explained. "The patient's prolonged hypertension led to the cardiovascular disease. Don't think you can talk your way out of this with your smooth talk. This is your negligence. Compensate us now, or we'll take this higher up." your position as department head won't be safe. My brother quickly snatched up the AI-generated document. With a smug look, he began reading it aloud while instructing our mother to hold up her phone and record everything as evidence. Dr. Wang, I am formally notifying you that I have reasonable grounds to suspect your medical team made errors during the surgery, resulting in severe, avoidable harm to my family member. I am now presenting the following demands and expect you and the hospital to take them seriously and address them promptly and properly. First, I demand the immediate sealing of all medical records related to this surgery. There must be no alteration or omission. These records are to be handed over to me for my personal safekeeping. Second, this medical incident must be designated as the hospital's most critical case of the year. A dedicated investigation team must be formed, and they are to report the progress of the investigation to me daily. Third, regarding the follow-up treatment for our patient, my wife Ginny, we demand that she be treated by the most eminent specialists in the country. Note, all associated costs are to be borne by the at-fault party, namely the hospital. Fourth, we demand reasonable and adequate financial compensation. This compensation includes, but is not limited to, medical expenses, lost wages, nursing care costs, disability compensation, and compensation for the immense psychological distress caused. For the record, this includes psychological damages for myself, my mother, my sister, and my son. Furthermore, due to your surgical error, my wife is now unable to bear more children, as we had planned to have a third child. All losses stemming from this must also be compensated. After the brother finished speaking, a chill ran through the room. Only their mother clapped in approval. Son, you're amazing. You laid it all out so methodically. I was hanging on your every word. That was brilliantly said. My brother looked smug as he waved his phone. Take a look at what I'm holding. Smart people know how to use their tools effectively. It gets the job done with half the effort. No need to hire a lawyer. I am the lawyer now. I could only applaud him silently in my heart. Well said. I was so embarrassed I wished the ground would swallow me up. I tried to stand as far to the side as possible, so no one would lump me in with them. The doctor didn't back down either. This matter will be dealt with by the proper authorities. As a doctor, I have a duty to uphold the honor of this white coat. My brother snorted coldly. We'll see about that. 9. In the following days, my brother insisted the doctor use the best medicine available for my sister-in-law and nephew. Mom was uneasy. This money is coming straight out of our own pockets. It's our own hard-earned cash. My brother brushed it off. What's there to worry about? We'll front the money for now. A hospital this big, a top-tier one at that, isn't going to be short 200,000 yuan. Still not fully convinced, Mom told my brother to ask the AI. My brother posed the question to the AI. Can the hospital afford to pay out 200,000 yuan in compensation? The AI's comprehensive analysis concluded that a major hospital is the appropriate level of care. My brother made a tisk sound and showed it to Mom. Mom bought it. My sister-in-law is in the ward, and my nephew is in the incubator. My sister-in-law is incontinent. Mom changed her a few times, then refused to do it anymore. My brother won't do it either, so they're making me do it. I don't want to do it either. She had an accident and was feeling uncomfortable. There was also a smell, so I used some air freshener, and it made a big difference. Anyway, Mom and my brother weren't around. Just let my sister-in-law suffer. She soiled herself 3 times. And I didn't change her. She was utterly miserable, cursing me with a slurred tongue. You, shameless, change me now. I stood with my arms crossed, looking down at her from my superior position. In my past life, when I was being hacked to death, she looked down on me just like this. Her eyes filled with utter contempt. The tables have turned. Now it's my turn. I slowly reached my hand toward her, but she remained watchful and hostile, her gaze fixed on me. In the next instant, she fell silent, her eyes pleading. I withdrew my hand, the needle in it gleaming. 10. After a week in the hospital, I watched as the money Mom and my brother had saved was completely used up, leaving less than 10,000 yuan in our pockets. The hospital's official conclusion was that the surgeon who performed the operation made no mistake whatsoever. Furthermore, the procedure was completed without a single complication. To put it simply, if it weren't for him, we would have lost both my sister-in-law and the baby. My brother was stunned, repeating, impossible. that's impossible, you're covering for him, I'm calling the police, and I'm getting a lawyer to sue you. The response was swift. After understanding the situation, the police conducted a thorough investigation, but in the end, they could only mediate. This really isn't the doctor's fault. The primary responsibility lies with you. At first, my brother and mother were stubborn as mules, refusing to back down. Later, after consulting a lawyer and facing reality, they became shamelessly insistent on getting compensation. Wrong, even if the hospital isn't at fault, the compensation must be paid. This was the conclusion my mother and brother reached after their discussion. I hid in the shadows and secretly recorded it. The rest of the time, I was just a complete ornament. If anyone asked me anything, I'd play dumb. I'd just tilt my head up, looking like a total idiot. What? I don't know, I'm not sure, I don't get it, I don't understand. My mom and brother took turns berating me, saying all my studying had made me stupid and that I'd never amount to anything. In a past life, those words would have hurt me, but not anymore. They can say whatever they want, I'm not getting involved. I just watched as you walked step by step into the abyss, with no path to redemption. I submitted the recording anonymously. Mom and my brother's scheme was exposed. And even though they tried to brazen it out, the police weren't having any of it. You'll be arrested for causing trouble. And so, we all had to slink off together in defeat. My sister-in-law was in her wheelchair, pushed by my brother. My mother was carrying my chubby little nephew, and I, laden with all the bags and parcels, brought up the rear. By the time I left the hospital, that family of 4 had already driven off. Now, my sister-in-law and nephew's fates have diverged from their previous lives. Mother and brother would also waste their lives under the weight of their burdens. What am I still standing here for? Just toss it in the trash and be done with it, and then you're out of there. 11. There's no savings at home, and my older brother is swamped with work every single day. Mom stayed home to take care of the baby and the older child. She called me and said, "Belle, could you drop out of school and come home to help me? Once your sister-in-law is better, and once Felix is a bit older, you can go back to school." I shot back, "Do you own the school or something? You think I can just drop out and re-enroll whenever I feel like it?" Mom was furious. "How dare you speak to me like that? If you don't listen to me, I'll cut off your living allowance and tuition, even if I wanted it. Could you afford it?" My mom doesn't have as much money as I do now. I got into a top university in a major city. Just by tutoring, I can make 200 to 300 yuan an hour. Honestly, having money really gives you confidence. Mom was completely taken aback that I had changed so much and even dared to talk back. She suddenly roared, "Who are you?" "Me? I don't care who you are. Get out of my daughter's body right now, or I'll make sure your spirit is utterly destroyed." My mom thought I was possessed by some evil spirit. Ridiculous. I told her again, in no uncertain terms, that I wasn't coming back, and then hung up the phone. After a brief period of peace for about a month, the drama started up again. I'm not answering the phone. It was my academic advisor calling, saying my mom had phoned the principal's office. She really knows how to use online resources to track someone down. I had no choice but to call back. Mom sobbed, "Felix, he's gone." "Me, gone? Good riddance." Mom screamed hysterically. "How can you say that with a clear conscience? He was your own nephew, your own flesh and blood. Did you look after him for even a single day? Not one, and you call yourself a college student. What kind of an aunt are you? I'm going to report you to your university president. I'll report you." Mom hung up the phone with a sharp click. She was so furious. She must have actually reported it. I didn't care, happily munching on my burger, watching a variety show, and sipping my Coke. Not long after, Mom called, Belle, you really have some nerve. Even the principal is taking your side." Mom was skeptical. With no money, influence, or connections, you think the principal would look at you twice. "I don't believe you have any real talent." Her tone shifted, becoming even more biting and caustic. "You're so young, and you're involved in that kind of dirty business. Don't come back. I'm not your mother, and you're not my daughter." Fortunately, I had long stopped thinking of her as my mother anyway. In my past life, although my mother didn't take part in killing me, she shielded my brother, sister-in-law, and nephew. They claimed I was too proud and full of self-blame, so I took my own life. She didn't even grieve, she just lived it up. Spending my money, I have no feelings left for her. If there is any feeling left, it's hatred. Fine, let's cut ties. Hey, you're truly heartless. I was impulsive just now. After all, you're my own flesh and blood. I shouldn't have spoken to you like that. Mom's tone softened. Just come home first. We can talk it all through properly once you're back. Hey, Marge is home. We found a match for your daughter. With those words from the receiver, the call abruptly ended. They found me a husband to marry me off, just to sell me for the bride price, to get me to come back. They even fabricated news about my nephew's death. That's really harsh. For the next few days, I was busy with classes and worked a part-time job on the weekend. I didn't give the matter any more thought. My nephew's business is none of my concern. In my past life, I made my sister-in-law take medicine, which gave my nephew a healthy body. I bought him clothes, food, and drinks. When he started school, I kept buying him all kinds of learning devices. He would always call me saying his grades were great, but when I came home for the new year, I'd find his performance was a complete mess. He even sold the study tablet and all the learning materials I bought for him. At least I tried to be good to him. I don't feel the slightest bit guilty. I was just scrolling through videos to kill time when I saw my mom live streaming. They were actually live streaming my nephew's funeral. He's really gone, someone in the chat asked how he died, but there was no response. The rest were just messages of condolence. There were also people sending gifts, and quite a few of them, too. For a single live stream, you could easily make 1,000 or 2. I ended the live stream. What they do is none of my business. I chose not to look, but my relatives still forward it to me, adding a few complaints along the way. I replied to the messages half-heartedly. Belle, someone in your family has died again. 12. Your sister-in-law is dead. A sudden thought struck me, and I went to open my mom's live stream. Sure enough, there she was, eyes red and brimming with tears, pouring her heart out. Does God only pick on those who are already suffering? My grandson just passed, and now my daughter-in-law is gone too. How am I supposed to go on living? Wah! Someone in the live stream comments asked how she died, but the mother still didn't respond. She just kept on crying. After uttering a few words about her miserable fate, she began to wipe away tears. When the tears wouldn't come, she ducked off screen, sprayed some chili, and then the tears flowed in torrents. Some netizens noticed something was off, asking, why is there chili powder on the streamer's face? Others even questioned whether she had really died. Mom frantically picked up her phone and turned away. A layer of comments swiftly scrolled by. That was terrifying. It's real. It's really real. We all believe it now. The live stream was shut down. When Mom restarted her live stream, the platform didn't give it any push. The viewership stayed below 10 people. I always had a feeling there was more to this story. Sure enough, it blew up again, but this time as a news story. It turns out that Ginny's brother and sister-in-law, Zane and Bess, were already seething with resentment. When they saw that Ginny had died, they went to demand money. They didn't get the money, but they did stumble upon something suspicious. Under their relentless questioning, Mother became utterly flustered. Zane and the other person called the police. The investigation brought the whole truth to light. The mother and the brother harbored resentment towards the sister-in-law and the nephew, and on top of that, they were barely making ends meet each month. After considering everything, they decided to get a divorce and have the sister-in-law take the nephew away. My sister-in-law disagreed. Her words were halting, but her meaning was perfectly clear. Everything I am now is your fault. I'm not leaving. You have to take care of me for the rest of my life. That really hit a raw nerve. They already saw her as a burden, and now even more so. The nephew has suffered brain damage, with severely stunted intellectual development. He's essentially mentally disabled. It didn't get much traffic views. The older brother then smothered the child to death. The mother was in charge of going live to milk sympathy and earn money from virtual gifts. It really works. Just by talking the talk, they pocketed 10 or 20,000, but later, it all went downhill, earning just pennies a day. So, the two of them set their sights on their sister-in-law. My brother felt no remorse and pulled the same old trick. He tried to cash in on my sister-in-law's death once more. This time, he went too far. Both my mother and brother ended up behind bars. The older brother, as the principal offender, was sentenced to life imprisonment. The mother, as an accomplice, was sentenced to 10 years. This is the fate they deserved. Story 2. In my past life, my mother-in-law moved into my home with my elder brother-in-law's family, when the apocalypse came. They threw my daughter from the 22nd floor while I was out searching for food. In despair, I rushed into a horde of zombies to find her body, only to be instantly overwhelmed by the surging tide of the undead. Reborn, I will make them pay in blood. Esme jolted awake from the nightmare, gasping for air. The agony of being torn apart by zombies sent chills down her spine, and cold sweat flooded her body like a broken dam, instantly soaking her thin nightgown. The sight of her daughter's lifeless body, broken like mud, haunted her relentlessly before death. Despair and anguish intertwined, threatening to consume her completely. Mom, just then, a tender call came from beside me, like a warm sunbeam in winter, gently dispersing the thick, ink-like darkness surrounding me. Esme slowly stood up, her hands trembling as she gently caressed her daughter's little face, feeling her warmth and gazing at her innocent, adorable sleeping expression. Her eyes reflected the fear of having narrowly escaped death and the newfound determination after rebirth. This wasn't a dream, I had truly returned. The sharp, bone-chilling roars of zombies still seemed to echo in my ears, but the familiar surroundings brought me a slight sense of relief. I silently vowed in my heart, in this lifetime, I will do everything in my power to live well with my daughter and never let the tragedy of the past life repeat itself. Turning around, I picked up my phone to check the date. There was less than a month left before the apocalypse would erupt. Time was tight. As soon as the faint light of dawn began to appear, before the morning sun fully illuminated the earth, I had already sprung into action. With the apocalypse approaching, stockpiling supplies was the foundation of survival. After carefully taking stock of the existing food and daily necessities at home, the sky had already brightened completely. I glanced around. This house was definitely no longer livable for me and my daughter. Not long after my husband's death in my previous life, patients infected with an unknown virus began appearing on the streets. At that time, my mother-in-law said it would be hard for me to raise my daughter alone, so she moved in with her eldest son's family of 4, claiming it was for mutual support. In reality, they had their eyes on my house. Back then, my child was still young, and I didn't dare to confront them directly. Little did I know that when disaster struck, my daughter and I would still end up being killed by them. Moreover, when the apocalypse arrives, cities with their dense populations will see rapid zombie outbreaks, while the countryside, sparsely populated with mostly elderly and children, will be relatively safer. Without hesitation, I called my parents back in our rural hometown. The moment I heard my mom's voice, my nose stung with emotion. In my past life, when my parents learned about the hardships Momo and I were facing, they wanted to come bring us home, but they encountered large-scale lockdowns and couldn't even make it out of the county town. As soon as my mom answered the phone and heard my suppressed sobs, she froze for a second before quickly turning to my dad and saying, "Our daughter's been wronged, we're going to bring her home tomorrow." Listening to my mother's anxious voice on the other end of the phone, the tears I had been holding back finally fell. "Mom and Dad, don't panic yet, I'm fine for now, but you must believe what I'm about to tell you." It was hard to explain over the phone, so I just told them that an outbreak might be coming. I would send a lot of supplies home soon and instructed them to hide the goods discreetly, not telling anyone, and to wait for me to return before I explained everything. Then I asked my dad to contact a trusted construction crew to quickly reinforce our old family home. "Dad, time is tight, do everything you can to make the house as sturdy as possible." My tense voice affected him, and he hurriedly promised to start first thing the next morning. After hanging up the phone, I took a moment to calm my emotions before frantically searching for various survival guides on my phone and drafting rough plans. Having a plan was one thing, but executing it wouldn't be simple. I needed money, a lot of it. I recalled the property mortgage advertisements plastered in the elevator. They were primarily loan sharks, led by a man named Kian. In my previous life, he and his gang of thugs had looted supplies in the neighborhood and even tried to break down my door. Fortunately, it was only a month into the apocalypse back then, and social order hadn't completely collapsed. He didn't dare to actually take lives, which allowed us to evade his threats several times. But deep down, I knew this neighborhood was no longer safe, and there would only be more trouble ahead. This time, I decided to let them and my uncle's family tangle with each other, let them fight like dogs. Without overthinking it, I found their number in the property management group chat and dialed directly. after agreeing on the loan amount and interest for mortgaging the house. He told me to deliver the property deed to the shop downstairs. And then he would release the funds. After handling these matters, I started frantically placing orders on various apps, all kinds of canned goods with long shelf lives, compressed biscuits, ham sausages, vacuum-packed foods, and various vegetables that can be stored for extended periods. To avoid arousing suspicion, I only ordered small quantities each time and switched between different vendors. At 9 in the morning, I prepared to go out shopping with my daughter, just as I was about to leave. The door was banged loudly. Today was the day my mother-in-law and my brother-in-law's family moved into my home. In my previous life, under the pretense of protecting us orphans and widows from being bullied, my mother-in-law and brother-in-law's family took over my home with their entire family in tow. In the end, due to the scarcity of supplies during the apocalypse, while I was out searching for resources, they threw my daughter off the building. I was also bitten to death by zombies while trying to save her. Fortunately, heaven has given me a chance to start over and protect those I love. Suppressing the hatred in my heart, I opened the front door, only to see my mother-in-law standing at the entrance with her hands on her hips, followed by my brother-in-law's family of 4. Seeing me blocking the doorway, she looked displeased and pushed past me into the house, instructing as she walked, "Esme, go out and buy some daily necessities. It's convenient to get them in the city anyway. We didn't bring any, so make sure to get good quality ones." My brother-in-law's family also rushed in behind her, looking around greedily, their eyes gleaming with avarice. After surveying the living room, my brother-in-law Jules feigned concern and said to me, still standing by the door, "Sister-in-law, it's so unsafe for you and your child to stay in such a big house all alone. We've come to keep you company and look after you." Nephew Phoenix sprawled casually on the sofa, calling out to me with the air of a host, "Auntie, bring back some fresh food when you return. I'm craving seafood. I'm still growing, after all, and need proper nutrition." I sneered inwardly, too annoyed to engage. Just as I was about to leave with my daughter, my sister-in-law Ophelia, who had rushed straight to the bedroom upon entering, began loudly claiming my room. "Esme, your master bedroom is spacious, perfect for your brother and me. When you get back, pack up your things and move them out." Niece Tessa also walked into Momo's room, looking disdainful as she said, "This must be Momo's room, right? The decor is so childish, but since I'm a girl and need my own space, I'll make do for now." Although Momo has always lived with me, this room was decorated long ago. Indeed, when people are speechless, they sometimes laugh. Seeing their family's entitled and domineering attitude, for a moment I wanted to rush in and perish together with them, but I held back. I want to see how long they can survive in the apocalypse this time around, without me stockpiling food before the disaster or scavenging for supplies afterward. My husband is the second child in the family. When my mother-in-law gave birth to him, she had a difficult delivery and almost lost her life, not long after he was born. His father accidentally drowned while fishing, so she always believed the second child was a jinx and deeply disliked him. He was raised by his grandmother, and only after her passing was he brought back home. Yet, the resentment remained. Had it not been for his grandmother's inheritance, they wouldn't have taken him back at all. Later, when my husband came of age, he was driven out of the house and never cared for again. She didn't even show up when we got married. Nor did she contribute a single penny. Our current house was built entirely through the hard work of my husband and me. Just as our family's life was getting better and better, she became envious and came to our door, demanding that we support her, even asking us to buy her a house and a car. Then, out of the blue, a car accident took my husband away. At that point, my mother-in-law and my brother-in-law's family started scheming again, under the guise of caring for me and my orphan child. They actually wanted to take advantage of us and seize my house. If it hadn't been for the apocalypse that followed, they might have come up with other ways to harm me and my daughter, Momo. In my previous life, at this time, I was overwhelmed with so many things that I didn't even have the chance to deal with them before the apocalypse hit. This time, I won't make the same mistake again. Seeing that I remained silent, my mother-in-law gave me a cold sidelong glance and put on her authoritative tone, "Don't you give me that attitude. It's your fault for only giving birth to a girl, and now that my second son is gone, I think we'll have to rely on Phoenix from now on, so this house will belong to Phoenix in the future. And speaking of which, you should give me half of the compensation for my second son. You can't selfishly keep it all. He was my son too. After all, with that. She sat down on the sofa and declared matter-of-factly, I won't take the compensation money, use it to buy Phoenix a car instead. I can't be bothered to waste my breath on them. It's still broad daylight, and this family is already dreaming. They want to take my house and expect me to be their free servant. Just wait until I hand the property deed over to those loan sharks. Let them fight over it then, I sneered. Fine, you just wait and see. With a loud bang, I slammed the door shut, turned around, and carried Momo away. Faintly, I could still hear my mother-in-law shouting, demanding to know what kind of attitude I had. I scoffed and took the property deed to the mortgage shop, watching the notification on my phone confirming the deposit of $2 million. My mood finally lifted. I kissed Momo, making her giggle with delight. Mommy, are we going to Grandma's house? Momo misses Grandpa and Grandma. Momo tilted her head in my arms, her voice still carrying a hint of childish sweetness. Yes. Sweetie, we're going back to Grandma's house. I nodded at her, my heart aching intensely. We'll let Grandpa take you for a horse ride. Yay, horse ride, horse ride. Watching my daughter's innocent face, I took another deep breath. To protect this innocence, there are tough battles ahead to fight. The apocalypse is about half a month away, and time is tight, so I quickly sprang into action. I drove the company's small truck straight to the supermarket. In rural areas, rice and flour aren't particularly scarce yet, as every household has the habit of stockpiling food. With winter approaching, family granaries are even more fully stocked, so I focused on purchasing daily necessities and supplies, toilet paper, tissues, sanitary pads, toiletries, and all the essentials for Momo, along with formula milk for different stages, baby bottles, diapers, baby cream, and more. I loaded them into the shopping cart box by box, making several trips back and forth until the truck I drove was packed to the brim, which finally gave me some peace of mind. At the checkout, bystanders couldn't help but exclaim, "Are you trying to empty the supermarket? That's so much stuff." I just smiled and replied, "It's for the postpartum care center." Stocking up, the person nodded in sudden understanding and walked away. Besides food, weapons were also a top priority. I passed by a sports and cultural goods store and picked out a few sturdy baseball bats, thinking at least I'd have something for self-defense. At checkout, the shop owner noticed Momo peering through the car window by the store entrance and specifically warned, "Miss, be careful not to let the child play with these. They can still be quite dangerous." I smiled gratefully and replied, "Thank you, I'll be careful." After hesitating for a moment, I added, "The flu has been pretty severe lately. I'm stocking up more at home with the kid to go out less and reduce risks." The owner nodded in agreement and sighed, "True, I'm worried about panic buying like during the previous pandemic. Maybe I should stock up in advance too." Seeing that the boss was also taking it seriously, I said no more and got in the car to drive to my parents' home in the countryside. During the 4-hour drive, my mother-in-law called me several times, but I didn't answer. By the time I got home, it was already 9 o'clock in the evening. As soon as I pulled up to the gate, my parents had already opened it wide, letting the car drive into the yard. The moment I stepped out of the car and onto the ground, I finally felt truly relaxed. My mother came over with red-rimmed eyes, not even glancing at Momo, and immediately pulled me close to inspect me from head to toe, afraid she might have missed any injuries. Tears streamed uncontrollably down my face as my mom hugged me tightly, patting my shoulder and saying, it's okay, Mom's here now." My father walked over, looking at us huddled together, and gently comforted us. "Don't just stand here, let's go inside first. Is Momo asleep?" I choked back a sob and nodded. "She fell asleep on the way. Let's talk inside." I settled the sleeping Momo in my former bedroom and returned to the living room to find my parents sitting on the sofa, waiting for me to give them an explanation. Taking a deep breath, I told them everything that had happened during this time, including my dreams about the apocalypse. At first, they thought I was hallucinating due to the grief of losing my husband, but after my repeated assurances and considering the recent severe flu outbreak, they eventually believed me. I knew it. No matter what happens, my parents would unconditionally support me. We discussed the next steps for a while longer before heading back to the house to rest. Back in the bedroom, my phone lit up. It was a call from my mother-in-law. As soon as I answered, her harsh voice came through. Where have you been? Are you trying to starve me? I asked you to buy some groceries. Do I have to beg you now? The voice of my sister-in-law could faintly be heard in the background. See, the second son's family always thinks too highly of themselves. My mother-in-law, provoked by a few words, raised her voice even louder. How long has it been since my son died? And you're already neglecting me, you heartless woman. I didn't argue back, pretending to be anxious as I said, Mom, there's been some trouble at the factory, the accident wrecked all our orders, and now we can't deliver, the buyers are demanding compensation. She choked back, as if afraid I'd ask her for money, and snorted, look at how useless you are, can't even handle such a small matter. Let me tell you, you can't touch my son's assets, that's my retirement money. Figure out your factory problems yourself. Without waiting for my reply, she hung up. I stared at the disconnected call and sneered, wondering how much longer she could keep up this arrogance. The next morning, as soon as I got up, Dad arrived with the construction team. They carefully examined the structure and the surrounding environment. The house, including the yard, covered about 600 square meters, with 3 floors above ground and 1 basement level, with money at work. The construction team quickly drafted a plan. The first step was to tear down the main gate and reinforce the walls with steel plates, making them thicker and taller. Several surveillance cameras were installed both inside and outside the yard. To avoid suspicion, I told the construction team that I was planning to open a themed escape room in the countryside. The team leader even suggested adding an extra layer of electric fencing for safety, just without connecting it to power. I happily agreed. All doors and windows in the building were replaced with reinforced alloy frames, fitted with thickened bulletproof glass and fully blackout-heavy curtains. Normally, the family lives on the first floor, so steel plates were added to all 4 walls of the first floor and around the basement, followed by a double layer of insulation panels on the exterior for both warmth and soundproofing. Each room door was installed with a vault-like security door. The latest ventilation system was also installed to ensure proper indoor air circulation. The second and third floors are usually used to store supplies. With all doors and windows sealed shut, the rooftop is covered with solar panels, and silent power generation equipment is installed at the 4 corners of the house to ensure continued electricity supply in case of a blackout. I set a tight deadline of half a month and spared no expense. So the construction team leader pulled in several crews to work around the clock on the renovations. After finalizing the renovation plans, my parents and I split up to take action. They went to the wholesale market to purchase large quantities of meat and long-lasting fruits and vegetables. We bought 500 pounds each of pork, beef, lamb, chicken, duck, and fish, cabbage, radish, tomato, eggplant, winter melon, potato, sweet potato, apple, pomelo, orange, etc., 100 gene each. There are also various nuts, like peanuts and sunflower seeds. Mom and Dad also bought about 10 packets each of various vegetable and fruit seeds, so we can grow our own food in the future. The old family house is being renovated, so our whole family is staying at a hotel in town for now, and we've also rented an abandoned factory building in the suburbs. I made an agreement with the boss to deliver all the goods to the newly rented factory building first, then slowly move them to the abandoned granary in the village at night. That place is quite remote, and hardly anyone goes there anymore. Meanwhile, I took Momo to various places and ordered 1,000 barrels of water and 10 water purifiers, instructing them to deliver in batches at different times to the locations I specified. Next, I went to the home appliance market and bought air conditioners, refrigerators, power banks, tablets, and various lighting equipment. I also purchased electric pots, frying pans, induction cookers, portable gas stoves, smokeless charcoal, and various other kitchen utensils. It was already dark by the time we finished scouting the market. After a good night's sleep, the next day we started a new round of stockpiling. My parents took Momo to raid various pharmacies, purchasing a batch of common medicines, cold medicine, fever reducers, anti-inflammatory drugs, alcohol, hemostatic agents, bandages, and more, filling a full 10 boxes. Meanwhile, I went to the building materials market to buy gloves, axes, hammers, military shovels, chainsaws, stun batons, multifunctional toolkits, and other items. I also ordered various clothes and bedding online, including seasonal clothing, quilts, and complete bedding sets. The days passed by, and every day we were either shopping or scavenging. The money in my hands and my parents' savings were almost depleted. And I even took out loans worth several million from various online lending platforms to continue stockpiling. After all, once the apocalypse arrives, these debts would cease to exist. Finally, the house was fully renovated within half a month, and it took a few more days to quietly transport the items from the factory and granary back in batches, organizing them neatly. With the concerted efforts of our family in preparing supplies, the house was now packed to the brim. There were only a few days left before the full outbreak of the apocalypse. Looking at the mountain of supplies piled up at home, I finally felt a genuine sense of security in my heart. After getting everything in order, my parents, Momo, and I went out to a restaurant for a big meal, finally allowing us to relax our tense nerves a little. I don't know when the apocalypse ended in my previous life, but it was the second month of the outbreak when I died. At that time, it was the peak of the zombie crisis, so it probably wouldn't have ended so easily. The supplies we've prepared now are only enough for our family of 4 to survive for about 2 years. In the days to come, we'll have to live even more cautiously, hoping that the whole family can safely make it through all of this. We had a good night's sleep, and the next morning, Dad took Momo out to continue stockpiling supplies, checking if there were any important items we might have missed. I turned on my phone that had been powered off for half a month. As soon as I turned it on, my mother-in-law's call came through. I answered the call, only to hear her furious. "Where the hell have you been? You haven't come home for half a month. Did you run off to some other man's place?" Hearing her voice still reminded me of how she tormented me and my daughter in our previous life during the apocalypse. Suppressing my hatred, I coldly replied, "Spit it out if you have something to say. I'm busy and don't have time to listen to your nonsense." She didn't expect someone as usually gentle and polite as me to speak to her like that. Clearly taken aback for a moment, once she regained her composure, she unleashed a torrent of abuse. "Esme, you blind-hearted bitch, my son just died, and this is how you treat me. You must have been planning all along to run off with my son's compensation money. Oh, you. I always knew there was something off about that sly, seductive look of yours. You charmed my son so much he wouldn't even listen to his own mother. Well, let me tell you, no way, you're going to cough up every last penny of my son's compensation." Hearing her curses, I hung up immediately. She called back, still hurling insults, so I hung up again. After several rounds of this, she finally stopped opening with curses against my mother. "Can you speak properly now?" I asked coldly. My mother-in-law couldn't bring herself to back down. So it was my sister-in-law who took the phone, trying to smooth things over. "Come on, we're all family here. Let's talk things out properly. No need to get so angry." My eyes were icy as I thought to myself, in my past life, I did speak kindly, but all you ever thought about was how to destroy me. I'm very busy, so whatever you have to say it quickly. My sister-in-law thought for a moment and said, "Mom is just worried about you. Things have been chaotic outside lately. Many stores are price gouging, and some feverish people have even taken to the streets attacking others." 3. After a brief pause, she feigned a sigh and continued, "After all, we're family, and you have a child with you. Mom is afraid you and Momo might get hurt out there." I sneered inwardly. They weren't afraid of us being bullied. They were afraid that if I left, there'd be no one left to be their fool and buy supplies for them. Perfect timing. I'll go back and give them a big gift. I softened my voice and replied, "I know, sis, I've just been too busy lately and spoke too harshly. I'll come back this afternoon and buy more groceries and supplements to help Mom calm down." The last few words were practically forced through gritted teeth. With that, I couldn't be bothered to listen to the smug tone on the other end of the line. I loaded all the packaging boxes and bags that had been cleared out during our previous home organization onto the truck, filled them with stones, and then covered them with a layer of food before driving back to the city. On the way back, signs of chaos were already emerging. Pedestrians on the streets looked restless, and the entrances of supermarkets along the way were crowded with people lining up. Those who sensed something was amiss had already begun rushing to stock up on supplies. It wouldn't be long before disorder broke out. When I returned to the residential complex, the security guard opened the gate for me and was visibly stunned at the sight of the truckload of supplies in my vehicle. Resident 2201, you're really good at grabbing supplies. Among the recently returned residents, you've snatched the most. I know this security guard ended up colluding with Kian's gang in his previous life too. Deliberately putting on a smug face, I replied, I usually love stockpiling. So I've had plenty of practice, there's even more at home than this. Without waiting for his response, I drove straight into the garage, leaving the security guard with a thoughtful expression. I carried 2 suitcases back home, opened the door, and though I knew it wouldn't be particularly clean, I didn't expect it to be this messy. A strange odor hung in the air, a mix of stench and sourness, impossible to block even through a mask. On the table were unwashed plates, and the floor was littered with trash, leftover takeout boxes, clothes and socks, various packaging, and the formula cans Momo had left behind. Water stains marked the floor, and the once white sofa had turned yellowish. Seeing the previously tidy house ruined like this, I felt nothing at all. Since they're so eager to have this house, let them live here for the rest of their lives. I hope they can hold back their tears when this house becomes their grave. When my mother-in-law saw it was me who opened the door and came in, her face turned cold as she was about to scold me, but upon noticing the food in my hands, her expression softened slightly. Why did you take so long? Were you trying to starve us to death? With that, she snatched the food right out of my hands. Is this all? How useless. Who could possibly eat this little? While urging Uncle's family to come out, he was stuffing his mouth with large bites of the roast duck I brought. Little sister, you're finally back. It's good you're home. You weren't bullied outside, were you? Sister-in-law Ophelia and niece Tessa came out wearing my pajamas, walking to the dining table. He picked disdainfully through the bag, took some bread, and went to eat on the sofa. Phoenix came out without even a greeting and unceremoniously sat at the dining table, eating with my mother-in-law. My uncle, with his hands behind his back, nodded at me with the air of a host. You came back just in time. You've been gone for so long without any news, and the house hasn't been tidied up. Look at the mess it's in now. I smiled at him and said, you're right, after all, it's my house, and cleaning it is my responsibility. The older brother seemed surprised by my words, glanced up at me, and before he could speak, Phoenix's voice came from the side. Whose house it is doesn't matter, just clean it without any nonsense when you're told to. I took a deep breath before replying gently, you're right. I'll clean up once you finish eating, that'll free up some space. There's a whole carload of supplies in the garage downstairs. I can't move them myself, so I'll need your help to bring them up. At the mention of another carload of supplies, they all turned to look at me in unison, their meals forgotten. What? A whole carload of supplies? You just left them in the garage. You reckless woman, with prices so high these days, what if they get stolen? My mother-in-law's furious voice rang out as she sprang up and rushed toward the door, exchanging a glance. My brother-in-law and his wife couldn't stay seated either. They quickly grabbed their children and hurried after her. As they left, they called back to me, hey, sis, just stay home and tidy up the place. We'll handle moving the stuff. Watching the whole family scramble to press the elevator button, I feigned concern and shouted after them, be careful, there are eggs in there, don't rush and break them all. My mother-in-law waved her hand impatiently, mind your own business, clean the house first, because many people had been rushing out to stock up recently. The elevator was moving up and down very slowly. They waited for 2 minutes before finally getting on. Hearing the sound of the elevator door closing, I put down the broom in my hand. I went to my former bedroom. The wardrobe door was wide open, and my clothes were scattered all over the floor. The skincare products on the dressing table were also in disarray. The bottle I had just opened before leaving was now only half full. The jewelry in the jewelry box was also scattered in disarray. The expensive branded pieces from before the apocalypse were gone, but a few old-fashioned gold items remained. I sneered and packed them all up. Gold could always serve as hard currency, no matter the circumstances. I walked to the wardrobe, lifted the rug laid at the bottom, and found a hidden compartment underneath. It contained various documents, and at the very bottom was a concealed box. The box was highly sophisticated, requiring a password to open. After entering the code, I unlocked it to find a precision crossbow and 20 exceptionally sharp bolts inside. It was something my husband had acquired from who knows where in the past. He also said that if he weren't so timid, he would have wanted to bring back a handgun he had at the time as well. After putting away the crossbow, I checked the time. Only 3 minutes had passed. The elevators were so busy now, they wouldn't be back so quickly. I went to the study, which was also left in a mess by them. The floor was littered with books and used tissues, and on the table sat a teacup filled with cigarette butts. When Momo was born, we hired a postpartum nanny and installed cameras in several rooms of the house. But they were all put away later. Back then, for the sake of appearance, the designs were all decorative pieces, but now when displayed, they don't attract any attention at all. I had planned to take advantage of the remaining time to deal with the supplies previously inventoried, but they had already wasted half of them over the past 2 weeks by picking and choosing, scattering them all over the ground. Looking at the open bags of rice and flour, with dark shadows crawling inside, I nodded in satisfaction. Seems I won't need to lift a finger. In the past, these supplies would have lasted a month, but now I doubt they'll even make it half that time. Returning to the living room, I pretended to sweep the floor with a broom, while they came back panting from carrying the supplies. As soon as my mother-in-law entered and saw the barely changed state of the house, she immediately shouted, "What have you been doing all this time? Get out of my sight, just looking at you annoys me. You can't even handle such a simple task." Even as she cursed, she didn't stop moving the supplies into her own bedroom. Those who followed behind also had their own agendas, placing the items they carried into their respective rooms. I watched them coldly as they busied themselves moving things, pretending to offer help in organizing. "Have you finished moving everything into the car? Let me help you organize it." As soon as I spoke, the whole family refused in unison. "No need." My sister-in-law walked over with a fake smile. "We're done. There wasn't much to begin with. You really bought too little. It won't even last a few days." I sneered inwardly in my heart. "Too little, it'll be even less in the future." My mother-in-law walked out with a displeased expression. "I heard from the neighbors that the situation is chaotic lately, and there might be another lockdown. You only grabbed this little. It's nowhere near enough. Hurry up and go out to grab more. Phoenix has a big appetite. He can't miss a single meal." "That's right, Auntie. Get me some skincare products while you're at it, just like the ones in your room," Tessa chimed in, as if it were the most natural request. "For, I want chicken legs and burgers. We can't even order takeout now. Haven't had them for days." Phoenix also instructed me with a displeased look. Uncle coughed and chimed in, "Bring back a few packs of cigarettes. I'm an old smoker. Can't go a day without it or I feel all out of sorts." Sister-in-law waited for them to finish, then shot them a mock scolding glance. "Don't mind them, little sister, but since you're more familiar with the area and we don't know our way around, you'll have to be the one to go shopping." Though she seemed to mediate, in truth, she wasn't about to let me off the hook either. "Once we've bought everything, we'll go down and help you move it. There are plenty of us, so it'll be quick." With that, she smiled warmly at me, watching this family. I walked leisurely to the door and said to them, "All right, I know this area well. I'll go see if I can grab some more supplies. Wait for my good news." My mother-in-law didn't expect me to be so straightforward. After a moment of surprise, she snorted with a laugh. "Fine, you know what's good for you." My sister-in-law smiled obsequiously as she saw me out the door. "Go ahead and fight for it without worry. We'll take good care of Momo at home." Only then did she realize something was amiss as she spoke. The daughter I always kept by my side seemed to have not returned with me this time. Watching her belated reaction, I replied cheerfully, "It's not that stealing things is troublesome. I just took her to the kindergarten." "Oh," then hurry back. Although feeling something was off, she didn't think much of it as she watched me enter the elevator. I waved at her with a big smile on my face. "Goodbye, enjoy all of this to the fullest." As I left the neighborhood, I passed by the gate and made sure to nod at the security guard, ensuring he could see my completely empty trunk. On the way back, I visited several markets, only to find that the prices of all goods had already multiplied several times over. Major supermarkets had also begun limiting supplies, and the situation was on the verge of chaos. It was past 10 p.m. when I finally made it back to my hometown. As soon as I got out of the car, I saw Momo running over with quick, light steps. I bent down, and Momo rushed into my arms. As I lifted her up, she nuzzled against my face and gave me a big kiss. My mom followed behind, sighing helplessly. "She refused to sleep until you came home, and now she can barely keep her eyes open." I ruffled Momo's hair and smiled, saying, I'm back. My dad also came out and saw the car full of supplies I had brought. He wanted to unload them, but I stopped him. Let's go inside first. We can sort out the things in the car tomorrow. The three of us sat down on the sofa, with Momo curled up obediently in my arms, her head nodding as she was about to fall asleep. While patting her gently, I said seriously to my parents, "It's already very dangerous outside. On my way back today, I saw infected people, zombies, appearing on the streets." Both parents fell silent. If they had been half-doubting my words before, now they had no choice but to believe. Holding Momo left me with no free hands, so I signaled my dad to take something out of my bag. My father pulled out the exquisitely crafted crossbow. Noticing the cold metallic gleam of the arrows beside it, he gave me an inscrutable look before putting it back. Mom burst out laughing beside me. "No wonder you two are father and son," then went back to the bedroom and brought out a long cloth bundle. My eyes widened as I turned to look at my dad in disbelief. He crossed his legs with an air of composure and nodded reservedly, but the smug curve at the corner of his mouth gave him away. The three of us exchanged glances and laughed silently. Just then, Momo's little snores started up. I let out a long sigh and stood up, saying, "Let's get some rest. The city's going into a major lockdown tomorrow, so we should stay indoors as much as possible after that. Safety comes first. I'm not a savior, nor do I have such great power. I can only do my best to protect my family." Returning to the room, I tidied myself up and lay on my side, watching Momo sleep soundly. Being able to start over is already a great fortune for me. No matter what happens in the future, I will stay by her side, comforting myself with these thoughts. I gradually relaxed and fell asleep. The next day, as soon as I turned on my phone, I saw videos flooding the internet of infected people randomly biting others everywhere. This was exactly how it happened in my previous life. At first, there weren't so many zombies, but people were making videos to chase clout. So many were caught off guard when they encountered them, leading to a rapid surge in infections. It wasn't until news reports confirmed the reality of the virus and advised people to stay home and isolate that everyone finally realized they needed to rush to stock up on supplies. But by then, all the major supermarkets and markets had already been emptied. Various social institutions are already struggling to take care of themselves. The situation rapidly deteriorated until the zombie outbreak was in full swing. I had previously tried to anonymously warn people online, but too many reported me for stirring up trouble and inciting panic, and my account got banned. After that, I stopped bothering. I shook my head to dismiss the worries in my mind and stopped overthinking it. After waking up, my dad told me that the village chief had called in the morning, instructing everyone in the village not to go out. The authorities had issued a notice for all residents to stay home and avoid going outside. In the previous timeline, the lockdown lasted only 5 days because people could obey orders, but zombies wouldn't. 5 days later, the zombie outbreak occurred on a massive scale, and social order had already collapsed. We had stopped going out by then. Fortunately, we had prepared ample entertainment and fitness equipment, so it wasn't too unbearable. I was scrolling through my phone at noon when my mother-in-law's video call came through. "You idiot. You've been shopping for a whole day and night. Did you end up in some random man's bed?" As soon as the video connected, my mother-in-law started screaming like a madwoman at the camera. Then Phoenix squeezed into the frame with a menacing look on his face. "Hurry the hell up and bring the stuff over, or you can forget about keeping your house. If you dare mess with me, you and that good-for-nothing in your family won't have it easy from now on." Watching them fume with rage, I couldn't help but laugh out loud. "Your brain must have been fried by farts all day. What's the point of barking like a dog? You're just embarrassing yourself. A whole family of bloodsuckers, never knowing when enough is enough. After draining my husband dry all these years, now you want to suck me dry too. You've lost all sense of shame. You won't let me have peace. Haha, let's see if you have what it takes." After venting all at once, hanging up and turning off the phone, it finally felt like a release of pent-up frustration. Taking out the tablet connected to the home surveillance, I saw his family still huddled together, staring at their phones. Perhaps caught off guard by my sudden outburst, the entire family froze in place. When he came to his senses, Phoenix angrily snatched his mother-in-law's phone and threw it to the ground. The mother-in-law, too preoccupied to mourn the shattered phone, hurried to comfort Phoenix, patting his back to calm him down, and then began scolding me. "Phoenix, already aggrieved by my earlier scolding, hadn't had a chance to retort before his mother-in-law's yelling made him even more irritable. 5. With a sudden push, the old woman, who was in the midst of her heated tirade, lost her balance and fell flat on her backside. Enough already, what's the point of your cursing? If you've got the guts, go curse that bitch to her face. I could even hear the crack sound of the old woman falling through the surveillance footage. None of the 4 members of the Jules family cared about how badly she was hurt. They were all blaming her for not keeping me under control in the first place. The mother-in-law was so furious and in such pain that she kept gasping and moaning pitifully. I turned off the tablet with satisfaction, deciding to stop watching the show for now. I still had to teach Momo how to read in the afternoon, after enjoying a hearty hot pot dinner in the evening. I leisurely turned on the tablet again. The living room was now empty of Jules and his family. My mother-in-law had moved from the floor to the sofa, lying there and moaning. She must have been badly hurt from the fall. Just as I was getting bored, Phoenix's irritated voice came from the bedroom. Where's my food? Why hasn't that damn old woman brought it to me yet? The mother-in-law gritted her teeth, her face twisted in pain as she slowly got up and went into the kitchen. A short while later, she entered the study carrying a bowl of something unknown. No sooner had she stepped in than the sound of a bowl shattering was heard. Phoenix flew into a rage and demanded, "You're giving me this? I want meat. Who do you think you're fooling with this lousy bowl of noodles?" The mother-in-law immediately panicked. "My dear grandson, just have this to tide you over for now. There's no meat left in the kitchen. I remember that wretched woman brought back some canned food yesterday. I'll get it for you." She hurried to the place where she had hidden the supplies, but she was destined to be disappointed. She grabbed a can and was about to leave, but suddenly felt something was wrong as she reached the door. She turned around and lunged at the box of cans, only to find that, apart from a few on top, the rest underneath were all bricks. She couldn't believe her eyes as she rummaged through all the boxes, exclaiming in shock, "That bitch Esme sent us fake supplies." The others were stunned and hurried back to their rooms to check their own hidden supplies, only to be utterly dumbfounded. Everything had only a thin layer on top, with nothing but bricks and dirt underneath. Watching them finally discover the truth, I couldn't help but feel immensely pleased. My whole body relaxed with satisfaction. In the video, several people were in a state of panic, their faces filled with anxiety, like ants on a hot pan, making Momo spin around in agitation. Phoenix gritted his teeth, fuming with rage, and cursed, "We've all been played by that bitch. This was clearly intentional. Something felt off yesterday. That worthless burden of hers wasn't even with her. Turns out she had it all planned out long ago." Jules snarled, kicking the table in fury, his usually honest and simple face now twisted with viciousness as he panted heavily. After enjoying their performance for a while, I turned off the tablet and went to take a refreshing shower. After drying my hair, my mom also brought Momo back. I told her a bedtime story and held her as we both drifted off to sleep contentedly. These past few days, the family in that house appeared calm on the surface, but beneath it, turbulent undercurrents were stirring. They gathered all the edible food they could find together. Jules and Phoenix have big appetites, eating a lot without doing any work. Ophelia and Tessa used to pretend to do some work. But now that they know their mother-in-law can't get any benefits from me, they immediately changed their attitude, bossing her around all day. As supplies dwindle, their food and drink rations keep shrinking. When the mother-in-law fell before, she couldn't even go to the hospital and had to tough it out, still having to handle all the household chores for the whole family every day. The nutrition couldn't keep up either, and her complexion visibly turned pale every time she cooked. She could only eat a little extra beforehand. Today, Tessa happened to discover it and made a fuss, rallying the whole family to confront her. Phoenix flew into a rage and demanded, "You've eaten your fill, but the rest of us are still starving." Tessa crossed her arms and said coolly, "No wonder the food portions have been getting smaller lately. So Grandma, you've been helping yourself to extra servings, huh?" The mother-in-law initially felt somewhat guilty when caught stealing food. But after being criticized left and right, she became angry. Not to be outdone, she retorted loudly, "I'm still sick, yet I'm taking care of your whole family. What's wrong with me eating a little more? If it weren't for your greed scaring Esme away, would we have ended up in this situation?" Phoenix grew even angrier upon hearing this, his veins bulging. He grabbed her by the clothes, pushed her to the door of the secondary bedroom where she stayed, locked her inside, and secured the door from the outside. During this time, the others remained motionless, letting Phoenix do as he pleased. The mother-in-law banged on the door loudly, wailing and howling inside the room until she finally exhausted herself and quieted down. Returning to the living room, Phoenix said in a gloomy tone, "Since you dared to steal my food, don't blame me." With that, he carried a large pot of noodles back to his own room. Seeing his mother locked in the room by his son, Jules said nothing, silently smoking his cigarette to the side. It was late at night, and the mother-in-law was still locked up. She hadn't eaten lunch and was now too weak from hunger to struggle, lying on the bed crying pitifully. Dinner was prepared by Ophelia, and there was quite a lot of it. Although they ate without much enthusiasm, it was enough to fill their stomachs. Over the next few days, without the mother-in-law managing things, food was consumed at an alarming rate. What could have lasted half a month if rationed carefully now seemed unlikely to last even a week. Ophelia looked at the remaining rice and flour, sat down beside Jules, and said helplessly, "This can't go on, the leftover food probably won't last half a month." Jules never cared about household matters in the first place, and when something went wrong, he would only blame, "It's all because you don't know how to save." "What are we supposed to do if there's no food?" Hearing Jules' accusations, Ophelia felt wronged and retorted loudly, "I was just worried the children would go hungry. Why are you taking it out on me? It's not my fault things turned out this way. Go find Esme if you have a problem." Jules, annoyed by her shouting, raised his hand to strike her. Just then, a sudden knock came at the door. The two looked at each other, wondering who could be at the door at this moment. Before they could even ask, an arrogant voice shouted from outside, "Hurry up and pay back the money. When are you going to return it? If you can't pay, then get out of the house and make way for me." Phoenix and Tessa also came out. The family of four had no idea what was happening and didn't dare to speak. By now, the banging on the door had started outside, growing louder and more intense with each strike. You can feel slight vibrations even when standing at the door. "Stop pretending to be dead. I know someone's home. Open the damn door." Phoenix mustered his courage and replied, "You've got the wrong door. Our family doesn't owe any money." As if suddenly remembering something, Ophelia whispered urgently, "Didn't Esme say the factory owed a lot of money before? Could it be those debt collectors coming to collect?" Phoenix confirmed, "Yes, it's that bitch who owes us money." Then he turned and shouted toward the door, "You're looking for that bitch Esme, right? She's not here, and we can't find her either. She still owes us money." Outside, Kian didn't care about any of that. He snarled, "I don't care who you are. Get the hell out of there now. This house is mine now, and everything inside it is mine too." As he spoke, the knocking turned into the sound of something hard slamming against the door. As the saying goes, the soft fear the hard, and the hard fear the ruthless. The Jules family didn't dare open the door. Summoning their courage, they shouted back, "You're trespassing. I'm calling the police. Once the lockdown is over, the cops will come and throw you in jail." Hearing this, Kian sneered, "I've got all the paperwork in order. The property deed is in my hands. Even if the police come, they'll be the ones kicking you out." Only then did the people inside realize that I had sold the house. But they couldn't possibly leave. They had nowhere to go. With the world outside in such chaos and so many infected, stepping out would mean certain death. They could only soften their tone and plead, "Esme gave us this house. She's just scamming you for money. The property deeds are all forged. Go find her." Kian laughed in anger, "Fine, playing dirty with me, huh?" Then came even louder banging on the door. Fortunately, the door was sturdy enough to hold. But the growls of the zombies downstairs were getting closer. Seeing this, Kian didn't dare to make too much noise. He left after just one sentence, "Just you wait, motherfucker." Only when the people inside the room heard no more noise outside did they finally let out a sigh of relief. After calming down for a moment, they started cursing me like crazy. "Esme, don't let me catch you. You will die a horrible death." I happily ate fruit while scrolling through my phone, occasionally glancing at the surveillance feed. For now, everyone still has food reserves, but in a few days, I wonder if they'll still have the energy to curse me. Late at night, the old woman lay on the bed moaning, her face as pale as death. During this time, Jules' family said she was getting old and that eating less would be good for her health. so they only let her have one meal a day. She had also thrown tantrums and shouted at Jules' family, but every time she made a scene, Phoenix would drag her into a room and lock her up for the whole day. The others pretended not to see and remained silent. I can't stand being hungry every day. Even getting up is difficult. She probably never imagined that the Jules family, whom she had always cared for so much, genuinely wanted to starve her to death. Seeing this scene, I turned on the sound from the surveillance. How about it, my dear mother-in-law? Your precious grandson is being taken good care of, isn't he? Hearing the sound, the old woman was startled at first, then with great difficulty, she looked around and spotted the surveillance camera behind the curtain, her eyes gleaming with malice. It's you. Her voice sounded as if it had been scorched by smoke and fire, each word dragged out with hoarse difficulty. I stuffed potato chips into my mouth, the crisp crunching sound of chewing filling the air. Oh my, Granny, how did you end up in such a sorry state? Has your precious grandson not been taking good care of you? He. She lay on the bed panting heavily, her face flushed with anger, yet too weak to scold me. After enjoying the sight of her misery for a while, I leisurely asked, "Do you want something to eat?" The moment I finished speaking, her eyes flew open, her breathing instantly quickened, and she stared fixedly in the direction of the surveillance camera. I hid a few cans of luncheon meat in the fire hydrant by the door. Hope no one else has found them yet. With that, I turned off the microphone. Hearing my words, she acted like a drowning person grasping at a life-saving straw. Without caring whether it was true or not, she mustered the last of her strength and scrambled toward the door, half crawling and half rolling. She opened the main door and stumbled to the fire hydrant, trembling as she reached out frantically, searching blindly. The Jules family was awakened by her commotion. When they followed her outside, they saw her tilting her head back, mouth wide open, eagerly pouring something down her throat. "So that's it. I wondered why you weren't sleeping in the middle of the night. Turns out you were sneaking food here. Where else have you hidden stuff? Grandma, you're so disappointing. We're still starving." "Mom, you're going too far. No wonder the household supplies are running out so fast. You've been hoarding them all along. How could you become so selfish?" Phoenix stepped forward and snatched the can nearby, his eyes bloodshot. "You old hag, always saying you love me the most, yet here you are eating all by yourself." Watching the last of the food being taken away, the old woman swallowed the last bite in her mouth and then lunged forward, clinging tightly to Phoenix's legs. "Haven't I been good enough to you? Haven't I indulged you in everything since you were little? Haven't I been good enough? Just give Grandma one more bite." What a load of crap. "I'm the eldest son and grandson of this family. It's only right that you provide for me." Phoenix shoved her aside without a care. "I haven't even complained about how useless you all are. Back then, my classmates drove luxury cars and lived in mansions. Now, it's the apocalypse, and only then do I get to live in a big house. Thanks to you bunch of losers." This time, not only was the old woman trembling with rage, but Jules and his wife also turned pale instantly. Tessa smirked coldly, pretending not to hear a thing. For a moment, several people remained silent with gloomy expressions. Ophelia was just about to speak to lighten the mood. Suddenly, a mocking laugh rang out, accompanied by the sound of clapping. As a group of people emerged from the stairwell, the Jules family's expressions changed drastically, and they turned to flee back into the house. But it was already too late. The group was strong and burly, wielding weapons like machetes and baseball bats. Without much trouble, he subdued the few of them and brought them inside. Jules' family trembled as they huddled in a corner of the living room. After seeing Kian and his gang enter the house, I knew Jules' family was doomed. In the previous life, although Kian left after knocking at noon, he couldn't let it go and sneaked back at night. He had planned to sneak in through the balcony but was spotted by me, who was too worried about the future to sleep, forcing him to give up, for the time being. This time, after seeing them leave on the surveillance footage, I guessed they would surely return for a sneak attack at midnight, just like in the previous life. It's late at night, but I'm not sleepy at all. The exhilaration of vengeance surges through my heart. In this lifetime, those who have harmed me and my daughter, I will make you pay in blood. Weren't you all so tough at noon? Kian tapped the machete against Jules's face. "Where are the supplies hidden?" Jules shrank his head and said in a trembling voice, "And no, we're out of supplies." One of the people Kian had brought stepped forward. It was the security guard who had seen me return with supplies. the guard grabbed Jules by the hair from behind and yanked hard. "No supplies. Think we're idiots. I saw you hauling in a whole truckload of them." Jules was yanked up by the hair, looking at the security guard in terror. "I'm not lying to you. It's all fake. There's nothing but rocks inside," Kian scoffed. "You really think we're fools?" The machete in his hand came down hard on Jules' leg. Jules screamed and rolled aside, the machete only grazing his flesh as it came down. Along with the blood, the stench of urine filled the air. Kian and the others pointed at Jules' soaked crotch, roaring with laughter. Ophelia threw herself onto Jules, sobbing in agony, her eyes filled with terror and resentment, yet she dared not utter another insult, only crying out, "Stop hitting him, stop, he'll die." Clutching his wound, Jules trembled violently, too pained to speak. Kian ordered his accomplices to search room by room for supplies, and when they found the remaining food in the warehouse, they took everything away, watching the group carry out the supplies in large and small bundles. Phoenix's face turned pale, but he didn't dare utter a word. The old woman's expression grew increasingly twisted, and she finally couldn't hold back, shouting, "Put those down. What you're doing is illegal. I'll call the police to arrest you. You'll be executed for this." Kian, who had reached the doorway, turned back with a cold sneer and spat fiercely. "This house still belongs to me. Letting you stay here was already an act of mercy on my part." Tessa quickly covered her mother-in-law's mouth and said with an apologetic smile, "Brother, the old woman isn't in her right mind, just ignore her." Kian glanced at them, sneered, "Pathetic," and the group swaggered away with the food. After the group left, the only sounds in the house were the crying and cursing of Jules' family, along with Jules' painful moans as blood continued to flow from his thigh. Watching this, I felt a deep sense of satisfaction, in high spirits. I turned off the surveillance and went to sleep with my daughter in my arms. The next day, after our family of 4 enjoyed a hearty breakfast, Mom took Momo to watch the early education videos we had downloaded earlier. As for me, after my usual workout, I made myself a cup of electrolyte water, stretching while checking the surveillance footage. Phoenix sat on the sofa and demanded sharply, "Why didn't you hide the supplies properly? They were all stolen by those scumbags." "What am I supposed to eat now?" Ophelia sat on the floor, unable to hold back her tears. "How was I supposed to know someone would come in the middle of the night? If your grandmother hadn't opened the door for them, how could they have gotten in?" My mother-in-law hadn't received treatment for her previous injury and had gone hungry for many days, already emaciated beyond recognition from starvation and pain. Hearing Ophelia shift the blame made her even more furious, even through the video. I could sense her gritted teeth. "I was starving to death. If you hadn't completely disregarded whether I lived or died, would I have had to go out searching for food?" Tessa played idly with her fingers nearby and remarked coolly, "Grandma, if you could hide food outside, surely you must have hidden more than just this bit." Tessa's words left everyone momentarily stunned, unable to find medical supplies and forced to bandage his thigh with clothing. Jules became so agitated that he stepped forward and slapped his own mother. "It's all your fault. If you hadn't hidden the supplies outside, they wouldn't have broken in, and my leg wouldn't have been injured." The more he spoke, the angrier he became, trembling with rage until his legs gave way, nearly causing him to collapse. Ophelia, heartbroken for her husband, quickly rushed to support him. "Mom, where else have you hidden things? Stop keeping secrets. Everyone is still starving." The mother-in-law, slapped by the son she had doted on since childhood, grew even more furious and began wailing at them in distress. "It wasn't me who hid it. It was Esme. Esme gave it to me because she saw I was starving. You'd better treat me well, otherwise Esme won't bring you any more food in the future." The group looked surprised upon hearing this, never expecting that I would actually bring them food. "What's going on? How is that bitch Esme involved? She was the one who sent us a pile of stones. Maybe she was deceived too. There's no shortage of people trying to profit from disasters. Hurry, where's the phone? Call her and ask where else she's hidden things." Then my phone started flashing. When the video call connected, before my mother-in-law could even speak, Ophelia's fawning voice came through. "Esme, where are you now? When are you coming back? We're all so worried about you." I took a sip of water before leisurely replying, "It's very dangerous outside right now. I can't come back." On the screen, Ophelia's face was already contorted with rage, yet she was barely holding back from cursing. weren't you the one who sent food to Mom yesterday? Do you have any left? Yesterday, someone came to your place and took all the supplies you bought. If it weren't for us guarding your house, your place might have been taken over by others. Jules quickly chimed in, yeah. I even got into a fight with them and got my thigh injured. You can't just abandon us like this. This family is still as shameless as ever. A cold smirk curled at the corner of my lips. Oh dear, what should we do then? I said, turning around to grab a piece of beef jerky and chewing on it. I do have plenty of food here, but there's no way to send it over to you. Phoenix snatched the phone away, his eyes glaring at me fiercely. It's the apocalypse now. A woman like you with a child won't survive on your own. Tell me where you are right now. We'll come find you. Several people saw the abundant supplies behind me through the screen, their eyes filled with greed as they eagerly agreed. Watching the greedy family on my phone, my smile grew even brighter. Sure, come find me, I'm at home. Hearing my agreement, they looked pleasantly surprised and waited expectantly for me to give the address. But I had already fallen silent. When I first married my husband, they never showed up. It wasn't until our life got better that they started coming around. After learning that my hometown was in the countryside, they immediately looked disgusted and stopped asking further. Ironically, they were also from the countryside, yet they looked down on other rural folks, only caring about what benefits they could squeeze out of my husband. So I'm not worried about them finding me. They have no idea where I am. They waited for a while. But seeing that I still didn't speak, only the increasingly mocking smile on my face, they finally realized they'd been fooled. Unable to contain their anger any longer, they started cursing loudly. I still smiled without saying a word, while Phoenix cursed angrily, vowing not to let me off, and slammed the phone onto the floor. Looking at the disconnected phone, I felt a bit disappointed. I hadn't had enough time to savor their moment of frustration. I opened the tablet again to check the surveillance footage. This way, all their family's anger was directed at my mother-in-law. It's all because of you, you old hag. If it weren't for you, how could we have been humiliated like this? Mom, Jules is your only son. Do you really want to kill him? Mother-in-law was truly frightened now. She never expected that usually gentle me would really disregard her life or death. Tessa's eyes darted around. Grandma, just because that bitch Esme has no sympathy doesn't mean everyone is heartless. Why don't you go ask the neighbors if they have any extra food to share with us? The mother-in-law widened her eyes in disbelief. I'm still injured, and you want me to go out begging? Why don't you go instead? Tessa leaned against the dining table and said coolly, people will sympathize with you because you're injured. Mom has to take care of Dad. And it's too dangerous for a young girl like me to go out. If my brother goes, no one will take pity on him. So, you're the most suitable one to go. Seeing the others being swayed by her words, the mother-in-law shouted angrily, you worthless thing, I should have strangled you at birth, so you wouldn't be stirring up trouble now. Enough, stop arguing, Phoenix said, kicking the chair beside him away. Grandma, little sister is right, you're the most suitable one to go out. You don't want to see me starve to death, do you? The mother-in-law, wringing her hands and pointing at Phoenix, broke down sobbing. Are you even human? You're all a bunch of ungrateful wolves. You're sending me to my death. Phoenix hardened his heart and dragged her toward the door. Locked outside by her own beloved grandson, the mother-in-law frantically pounded on the door, crying and cursing, but no one was destined to pay her any attention, not even her own son, exhausted from her cursing. She finally resigned herself and slumped against the door. Inside the house, the others were equally panicked. With no supplies available outside, they truly faced the threat of starvation. All that remained in the house was a small amount of rice and flour previously scattered on the floor. Sweeping it together with a broom, they managed to gather roughly half a bag. Stretching their meager rations, they survived like this for another 2 days. 6. There was no longer any sound from the mother-in-law outside the door, but Jules' family still didn't have the courage to open it and look. Even in peaceful times, no one would casually open the door for strangers, let alone now. But the food at home was almost gone. These days, each person could only have one meal a day, and each meal was just a tiny portion. A shadow of gloom settled over everyone's hearts. Ophelia sat down beside Jules, grumbling, when will this ever end? The rice at home will barely last until tomorrow. What are we supposed to do then? Jules's injured thigh had only been roughly bandaged, and the wound was agonizingly painful. Hearing Ophelia's complaints only added to his irritation. With a loud smack, he slammed the table and snapped, "If you're hungry, then get out. What's the use of whining here? Go out and find some food yourself." Ophelia hadn't expected his sudden outburst. She opened her mouth to speak, but by the time she gathered her thoughts, Jules had already limped back to the bedroom, instantly flying into a rage. She shouted indignantly, "Who am I doing all this for? If I hadn't married you, would I be starving now? Now you know how to be fierce." Where was that fierceness when those bandits came? Jules refused to back down, yelling from the bedroom, "It's all your fault for being useless and not hiding the food properly. Otherwise, we wouldn't be in this mess, and you dare blame me." "Enough arguing, keep it up, and I'll throw you all out," Phoenix growled, his eyes bloodshot, his tone dark. Ophelia looked nervously at her usually doting son. All right, no more fighting. Mom will go cook for you," she said, genuinely afraid of him now. The old woman had already been thrown out, her fate unknown. She feared being next. Jules no longer spoke in the bedroom either, still injured. He dared to hurl abuse at his wife but didn't have the nerve to say a single harsh word to his young son. Just as the rice was cooked and the group came out, ready to enjoy their only daily meal of rice, Phoenix glared darkly at the others, finally fixing his gaze on Jules. Seeing the look in his eyes, Jules' veins bulged with anger. "What the hell are you scheming now, you bastard?" As soon as the words were spoken, Phoenix snatched the bowl in front of him and shoveled the food into his mouth. "Dad, since your leg is injured and infected, and there's no medicine to treat it, you won't last much longer anyway, might as well leave the food for me. Our family's legacy can't be cut off." Though Jules had long anticipated this day, he never expected it to come so soon. His voice trembled as he asked, what did you say?" The pain of his own mother being abandoned was something he finally understood firsthand. Phoenix didn't even bother responding. After finishing Jules' bowl, he picked up his own and began wolfing down the food. Jules glanced at his wife and daughter. Though their faces were filled with shock, the strength in their hands holding the bowls didn't loosen in the slightest. Overwhelmed by rage, he couldn't hold back and spat out a mouthful of blood. Tessa finished her meal with a look of disgust and ran back to her room. Phoenix acted as if he hadn't noticed, continuing to eat from his bowl as usual. Ophelia stood up to reach out and help, but Phoenix's gaze immediately fell on her bowl. Terrified, she quickly sat back down and buried her head in her meal. Phoenix withdrew his gaze in disappointment, but his eyes gradually revealed a menacing glint. By nightfall, when they had all returned to their rooms, Jules began to berate his wife. "Look at the fine son you've raised. If he dares to treat me like this now, he'll do the same to you all in the future. What else can I do? It's so chaotic outside now. No amount of money can buy food anymore. I don't care, you go out right now, whether you buy it or beg door to door. If you can't get food, don't even think about coming back in." Ophelia was startled. "The streets are full of infected now. Even grown men would die out there. Where am I supposed to get any, with my leg like this? How can I go? It's all your fault for spoiling our son rotten. Otherwise, he's young. He could have gone out and scavenged something by force." The more he spoke, the angrier he got. He grabbed her by the hair and slapped her. Ophelia was completely stunned. Years of oppressed life had drained her of any will to resist, and in the end, she could only cover her face and run out. She went to her daughter's room, hoping to pour out her grievances, but couldn't find her. After searching outside, there was still no sign of her. In panic, she shouted, "Tessa is missing." Phoenix came out with a scowl, grumbling angrily, "What's all the noise? You're gonna be the death of me. Tessa is missing." Ophelia anxiously spun Momo around. The remaining two turned pale. Phoenix grabbed Ophelia and asked, "Check if we still have food left." Her eyes widened in shock as she frantically ran to the kitchen, only to freeze on the spot. The spot where the rice and flour had been stored was now empty, with only a note left behind. "I just want to live." Phoenix flew into a rage and smashed everything in the kitchen that could be broken. "Oh dear, how are we supposed to live like this? That wretched girl is trying to ruin us." Thinking about the unbearable days ahead, Ophelia burst into tears. Jules was so furious that he punched the wall. "I always said she was a money loser. We should have strangled her at birth." Ophelia's wailing only made him more irritable. "Cry, cry, cry. That's all you ever do. What good is crying? It's all your fault for spoiling them, both of them are nothing but ungrateful wretches, Ophelia sobbed speechlessly, never expecting that after toiling to serve the entire family, she would end up with nothing but a heap of blame. Phoenix watched coldly. Mom, you've always been in charge of the food. Since you lost it, you're responsible for going out to find more, otherwise, none of us will survive. Ophelia clenched her teeth in resignation and dragged her heavy steps outside. If she didn't leave on her own, they would surely drive her out anyway. Watching through the surveillance feed, I never imagined things would unfold this way, but then again, it fits perfectly with this family's selfishness. They'd do anything to survive. In the following days, Ophelia did not return, and with no food left, the remaining two could only drink water to stave off hunger. After a few days without eating, they had already visibly lost weight. Jules was likely suffering from a fever caused by an infected wound. He looked utterly unrecognizable, lying dazed by the bedroom door, moaning in pain. Phoenix paced restlessly around Jules. I was quite curious. How could such a selfish person suddenly start caring about his father? Just as I was wondering, I saw in the video that he seemed to have made up his mind, dragging Jules toward the kitchen. Thinking of a certain possibility, my face turned pale with fright. And I was so startled that I didn't even notice the water glass slipping from my hand and shattering on the floor. My parents came running at the sound, following my gaze to the tablet. My father panicked and covered my mother's eyes, while she, guessing what was happening, shrank back and buried her face in his chest. I don't remember when I turned off the surveillance cameras. I just vomited violently in the bathroom, and when I looked up to rinse my mouth, I saw my extremely pale face in the mirror. I shut down all the surveillance. As for the fate of that family, I no longer care to keep track of it. In this apocalyptic world, such situations will only become more common. All I can do is protect my own family. Days passed one after another, just as I had imagined. Hardly anyone came to our hometown, only a few waves of zombies, which were kept at bay by the high walls and electric fences we had built earlier. Our family of 4 didn't slack off either. Daily exercise became a must-do activity, and we also started teaching Momo some survival skills, with the most important being how to protect herself. After more than half a month had passed, I suddenly remembered and checked the surveillance footage again. The living room of the house no longer had Jules' family. Instead, it was occupied by Kian and his group. I happened to overhear them talking about what happened to Jules' family. It turned out that Phoenix had held on for a few more days but eventually left the house, armed with 2 kitchen knives. He broke into the neighbor's house. By that point in the apocalypse, the neighbors were nearly out of supplies too. Unable to find food, Phoenix lost his mind and tried to kill the neighbor's child. Fortunately, although the neighbors were injured, they managed to escape. Phoenix, in his pursuit, unexpectedly ended up near Kian and his group. Realizing he couldn't escape and driven by hunger that clouded his mind, he raised a kitchen knife, determined to take Kian and the others down with him. But he was no match for Kian and his crew, who had long operated on the fringes of the law. While trying to dodge, he tripped over a corpse on the ground, fell from the windowsill, and was quickly overwhelmed and devoured by a swarm of zombies. At that moment, a man with a satisfied expression walked out of the bedroom. Pulling up his pants as he went, a barely clothed woman stumbled out after him, disregarding her disheveled state as she scrambled on all 4s toward Kian. Kian dodged her in disgust, grabbing a piece of bread from the table and tossing it at her. The woman snatched the bread, pushed the hair away from her face. It was Tessa. She immediately began stuffing the bread into her mouth, swallowing it whole. Between frantic bites, she babbled madly, "That man deserved to die. He kicked his own mother out, and the corpse he tripped over was hers. It's karma, it's karma." Kian and the others were momentarily surprised upon hearing it, but then they smiled and started talking about something else. After that, I never opened the surveillance feed again. I stopped paying attention to their affairs. In the days that followed, the nightmares from my past life no longer haunted us. Our family of 4 kept each other warm, and we vowed to use every ounce of our strength to survive in this chaotic era. 2 more years passed. Dad fired his last bullet, and the arrows in my crossbow were no longer sharp. Momo has already grown into the appearance of a little adult. Just when we thought we couldn't hold out against the next wave of zombie attacks, gunshots rang out from all around us. The broadcast that followed the gunfire was so heartening. The country will never abandon anyone. Hearing the inspiring words from the broadcast, for a moment, both my parents and I were in tears. Although Momo didn't understand why we were crying, she also looked serious as we all gazed at the flag fluttering in the village together. It is the ultimate destination that belongs to everyone, a force that can unite all, illuminating the path forward for all. Story 2. I have had the ability to foresee the future since I was a child, and this time, I foresaw the outbreak of zombies. As the end of the world approached, I transformed the newly bought house into the last fortress. I brought my mother, stepfather, and stepsister together. With the tide of zombies surging, can we survive? I woke up from my bed in a startle, with cold sweat soaking the quilt. I dreamed of the outbreak of zombies, stinking corpses piled up like mountains, and after a while, the mountains began to wriggle. Rotten zombies crawled out of them one after another, in the dream. I clearly knew that there was still 1 month left before the zombie outbreak. This was not a dream, but a prophecy. Since I was a child, I have had the ability to foresee the future, and this future appears in my dreams. I can accurately know when things will happen. The first time I had such a strange dream was when I was 5 years old. I dreamed that it rained heavily for 3 consecutive days, and a mountain flood broke out, submerging our entire village. I was very scared when I woke up and told my father about it, but my father didn't believe me because our village was built on top of a dam. As a result, it really started to rain. Since I couldn't persuade my father, I lied to my mother, saying that my throat hurt and I needed to pick herbal medicine on the top of the mountain. My mother went with me, half believing and half doubting. Unexpectedly, just an hour after we went up the mountain, the dam collapsed, and the entire village was swallowed up by the flood. My mother almost fainted from crying, shouting in her mouth, "Alan, why didn't you listen to Jane?" Later, my mother remarried and took me to another faraway village. The man in this family also had a daughter named Jenny. After they got married, they worked diligently and finally managed to save enough money. With the help of an acquaintance, they built a new house. On the first night of moving in, I dreamed that the house would collapse the next night. I told my mother about this dream. This time, my mother didn't dare to be negligent and hurriedly tried to persuade Uncle Lee. It was very inauspicious for me to say that the new house would collapse just 1 day after we moved in. Uncle Lee smoked a pipe and ignored my mother. Jenny also secretly and openly scolded me for not wanting their family to have a good life. That night, I didn't sleep. I moved a stool and sat in the courtyard by myself. Uncle Lee and Jenny finally couldn't resist my mother and came out. At night, the house didn't collapse, but it rained. Uncle Lee put down his opium pipe, and finally couldn't bear it anymore. He pulled Jenny and walked inside. My mother hurriedly went to stop them, but Uncle Lee didn't listen to her and kept struggling. As a result, while they were pulling each other, a strange sound suddenly came from the house. The next moment, it was that acquaintance who cheated Uncle Lee. He used all waste materials to build the house, resulting in a jerry-built project. My dreams have never been wrong. I must save myself quickly within this month, 30 days before the zombie outbreak. As soon as I got up early in the morning, I contacted the decoration company, returned all the windows I had installed in the new house, and replaced them with 3-layer explosion-proof glass. I bought a top-floor elevator apartment in the city myself. It had just been handed over not long ago, and most of the residents were still decorating. I quickly added sound insulation to the floor and walls, and also replaced the door with a super heavy anti-theft door that was 10 centimeters thick. The manager of the decoration company looked at me strangely. I just said that as a young girl living alone, I still needed to take good safety measures. The manager pursed his lips and agreed. He then suggested that I stick a one-way film on the glass, the kind that allows people inside to see outside, but people outside can't see inside. I nodded and agreed. 25 days before the zombie outbreak, after the house was completely renovated, I started purchasing according to the list. I was a food purchaser for a company and drove a pickup truck to haul goods everywhere. Most of the bosses of food factories knew me. I started buying things in the name of purchasing goods for the company. I definitely couldn't go to the supermarket to stock up. Such a high-profile purchase would only expose me quickly, and then my hiding place would be discovered. I was a girl without much strength, so I had to be careful in everything I did. I first bought 100 cases of mineral water and 50 large containers. In the early stage, I could fill the containers with water. Later, when there was no water, I could use the containers to collect rainwater. Then there were instant foods. I bought 50 cases each of self-heating hot pots and rice. 50 boxes of instant noodles of all flavors, and 20 jin each of frozen dumplings, tangyuan, sweet rice balls, xiaomai, steamed stuffed buns, soup dumplings, and steamed buns. I also bought hundreds of jin of frozen meat according to different categories. At the same time, the 2 large freezers I ordered were delivered to my home. They were just right for storing these foods that needed to be frozen. Next was the purchase of rice and flour. I stocked up 2,000 kilograms of rice and 500 kilograms of flour. Snacks were also essential. I bought 200 boxes each of potato chips and biscuits, 100 bars of chocolate, 100 cases of milk, 50 cans of milk powder, 10 cases of yogurt, and 70 cans each of various canned fruits. After the first round of purchasing, I didn't stop. After the zombie outbreak, the power would probably be cut off soon. Without power supply, the food in the freezer would also go bad quickly. I suddenly remembered that the company had bought 2 solar panels before, which had been idle in the warehouse. I drove to the company and secretly transported the solar panels out under the pretext of delivering goods. When my life was at stake, I didn't care if it was company property or not. Afraid of being suspected, I stood on the rooftop and installed the solar panels myself according to the instructions. Now I didn't have to worry about the electricity supply. 15 days before the zombie outbreak, I paced in the house and finally decided to bring my mother, Uncle Lee, and his daughter over. In the countryside, the situation with zombies would be more unpredictable, and that small courtyard couldn't protect them either. But I couldn't directly tell my mother that the zombie outbreak was imminent. If they accidentally told others about this, it would all be over. The phone rang once and was quickly answered. "Jane, why did you think of calling your mother?" I could tell that my mother was very happy and she missed me a lot. I choked up a bit, because I didn't want to be bothered by Jenny. I had never told them that I had bought a new house. My mother had always been thinking about taking out her lifetime savings to give me as a down payment. "Mom, I bought a new house in the city and want to invite you and Uncle Lee to live here. Please come to the city," I said, holding back my tears. My mother was a bit stunned, but then she became happy. Okay, my Jane has made it. Mom still doesn't want to bother you. You're alone in the city." "Mom," I interrupted her. "Please come, I'm scared living in such a big house alone. Come on, I bought the top floor. You can bring the vegetable seeds and plant vegetables on the rooftop." My mother was silent for a while and finally agreed. She called Uncle Lee to answer the phone. Uncle Lee was also happy and said they would come next month. I couldn't wait until next month. I quickly said, "Come over quickly, don't worry about the things in the house. Just bring all your clothes. I have everything else here." My mother and Uncle Lee still hesitated but agreed. I told them not to tell others in the village, lest some fellow villagers come to the city and cause trouble for me. They agreed and booked the train tickets for 5 days later. After hanging up the phone, I went out to purchase again. I bought 400 jin of fruits, 400 jin of various vegetables, and 50 bags of ham sausages. I bought 100 bottles each of body wash and shampoo, 100 tubes of toothpaste, 100 toothbrushes, and 100 pieces each of soap and scented soap. I bought 50 each of down quilts and blankets, 50 pairs of soft-soled slippers. And I also bought underwear and panties. In addition, I bought 300 packs of tissues and 100 boxes of sanitary napkins. Then there were the seasonings for cooking. I bought 100 packs each of salt, monosodium glutamate, and sugar, and 10 cases each of soy sauce, vinegar, oyster sauce, and chili oil. I bought a total of 100 jin of various chicken breasts, chicken wings, duck wings, chicken feet, chicken tips, and duck feet. 10 days before the zombie outbreak, I went to the station to pick up my mother, Uncle Lee, and his daughter. Looking at my pickup truck, Jenny said in disgust, "I thought you were doing so well. But you're just driving a crappy pickup truck." Uncle Lee turned around and scolded her. "If you're so capable, why don't you buy a pickup truck for me to see?" Jenny didn't dare to talk back to Uncle Lee and could only mutter to herself, "Sure enough, once there's a stepmother, there's a stepfather." I took them home, looking at the room full of things. My mother was so shocked that she couldn't speak. "Jane, what are you doing?" I pulled my mother and Uncle Lee to sit on the sofa and sighed. "Mom, Uncle Lee, I had a dream again." Upon hearing this, Uncle Lee's body shook. Since I predicted the collapse of the house when I was a child, he had firmly believed in my dreams and would ask me from time to time if I had dreamed of anything, but after that, there had been no more prophecies, until this time. It was the third time. I dreamed that there would be a zombie outbreak. My mother and Uncle Lee didn't know what zombies were. So I explained that they were something that humans turned into and would bite people after mutating. As long as someone was bitten by them, they would lose their consciousness and then turn into a zombie like them. After hearing this, Uncle Lee's hands were shaking. They quickly understood the reason why I had brought them here in such a hurry. After recovering from the shock, the two of them started to help with the preparations together. Jenny didn't say anything after hearing my words and sat on the sofa eating snacks by herself. 8 days before the zombie outbreak, I took my mother and Uncle Lee to the street to purchase. I didn't dare to buy all the medicines from one pharmacy, as it would arouse suspicion. We drove around the streets and bought something from each pharmacy. I bought 50 rolls of bandages, 10 bottles of medicine for bruises and sprains, 50 boxes of Jianwei Shaoshi tablets, a kind of digestive aid, 50 boxes of anti-inflammatory drugs, 50 boxes of cold medicine, 50 boxes each of vitamin C and vitamin E, and 100 packs of granules. Finally, to prevent the zombies from spreading through viruses, I also bought 5,000 masks. My mother was more meticulous than I thought. She was afraid that if the pots, pans, and other kitchen utensils at home were broken and we couldn't cook, so we bought 5 sets of kitchenware and 20 sets of tableware, to prevent changes in temperature. We bought 30 cases each of warm baby pads and cooling patches. Then I took the two of them to buy down jackets, pajamas, and bedding. Everything was in sufficient quantity, and we didn't consider the cost. When we got home, we happened to meet Jenny, who was coming back from outside. As soon as Uncle Lee saw her, he became anxious. I told you that it's not safe these days. Even if you don't want to help, just stay at home. What's the point of running out? Jenny gave him a glare. I won't be able to go out soon. What's wrong with me going out to see the wonderful world? Uncle Lee couldn't argue with her, so he simply stopped talking. For days before the zombie outbreak, Uncle Lee had been worried these days. Finally, he discussed with me and decided to go to the street to buy some suitable tools, just in case. After saying this, Uncle Lee looked at me a bit sheepishly and said in a low voice, "Jane, can Uncle Lee have 10 packs of cigarettes?" You know I can't do without cigarettes. I understood Uncle Lee very well. Just as I was about to nod and agree, my mother suddenly rushed out from the next room. "No, you should just quit smoking while you're at home." I looked at the two of them, feeling a bit dumbfounding. When we went to the street, I bought 2 long and sharp watermelon knives and 2 bone chopping knives. I also prepared 4 sets of protective gear, 50 flashlights, 50 power banks with a capacity of 20,000 mAh. 1,000 candles, 100 boxes of matches, 50 lighters, and 50 liters of gasoline. At Uncle Lee's request, I bought a set of radio equipment and brought it back. By the way, I also bought 5 high-definition night vision binoculars for outdoor use. The owner of the outdoor store was stunned when he saw me buying so many things. I had to explain that I was an outdoor adventure blogger and was going to take people camping in the mountains. When I got home, Jenny was gone again, and my mother was also missing. I went to ask Uncle Lee, and he said that my mother was on the rooftop. I ran up and saw that my mother had carried back several big bags of soil from the outskirts of the city. She sowed the seeds on the rooftop and started the urban farming life. This was great. Even if the zombie outbreak lasted for a long time, we wouldn't starve to death. The excrement we produced could also be used as fertilizer. After helping my mother tidy up the farmland, as soon as I got back home, I saw Jenny carrying a large bag of A4 paper back. "Jenny, what's this?" I asked. She looked at me. "We don't know how long we'll have to stay at home. I printed a lot of tabletop games, novels, and script murder games. At least we won't be bored to death." Then she took out 4 tablets from her bag and waved them in front of me. I bought a tablet for each of us. In the following days, Jenny was busy downloading all the popular TV dramas and movies in recent years. From amazing anti-Japanese war dramas to fresh and sweet dramas, from family trifles to fantasy battles, there was almost everything. My mother whispered to me, "Jane, look, Jenny is quite creative." I smiled bitterly. Except for her sharp tongue, she was okay. 48 hours before the zombie outbreak, I took Jenny to check floor by floor and found that except for a family on the third floor who had already moved in, all the other households in our building were still under decoration. The 2 floors downstairs hadn't been sold yet and were unoccupied. Our building was located inside the community, relatively hidden. Uncle Lee and my mother were taking stock of the inventory at home. In addition to the existing things, they also bought some tools needed for farming. Besides, they stocked up another 50 barrels of mineral water. The large containers we bought at home were also taken out and filled with tap water. 24 hours before the zombie outbreak, my mother called all the relatives we were familiar with at home. Although she didn't say it explicitly, she still told them to stock up more food at home during the epidemic. I counted the property in my hands and found that I had already spent all my money on stocking up. Now I only had less than 10,000 yuan left. Uncle Lee comforted me, saying that after the zombie outbreak ended, the current currency might not be usable anymore. Thinking about it, I thought he was right and stopped feeling sorry for the money. 3 hours before the zombie outbreak, Uncle Lee and I took some construction waste and placed it in the emergency passage to create the illusion that there was no one upstairs. We also found the infrared sensors at home and placed them in the hidden corners of the emergency passage. In this way, once someone came upstairs, my phone would receive an alarm. However, the battery of the sensor could only last for about 2 years. We closed the iron door of the emergency passage, locked it with a large iron chain, and then nailed thick wooden boards to completely block this path. 5 minutes before the zombie outbreak, Uncle Lee used to be an electrician in the city. I pressed the elevator to stop at the top floor, and then Uncle Lee found the wires of the elevator and cut them with a pair of scissors. The entire elevator lost its power. Today was the weekend, and generally, there wouldn't be any decoration workers in the building, except for the family on the 3rd floor. There was no one else in this building, so no one would find out that the elevator was out of order. 1 minute before the zombie outbreak, the 4 of us in the family were all sitting on the sofa. The trending searches were displayed on the computer, and the news was playing on the TV. Although there was still the sound of advertisements, the whole room was eerily quiet. As time ticked closer, we all held our breath. Although there were still no relevant reports on the internet or on TV, we all knew very well that in some corner of the world, the first zombie had been born, and it would soon spread to our place. 20 minutes after the zombie outbreak, I was resting with my eyes closed when Jenny pushed me hard. Jane, look at the trending searches. I opened my eyes and saw a deep red, hot character placed at the top of the trending searches. It read, "An unknown virus causes human bodies to rot and their consciousness to become blurred." I clicked into the video. A person, whose body was completely rotten and whose hands were folded behind his back in a strange posture, rushed into the crowd, took a bite at a girl's neck. The girl twitched and fell to the ground, then quickly stood up, grew fangs, and roared as she reached for the people around her. "It's here." Soon, an emergency news report came on the TV, urging people across the country to quickly find a nearby shelter. Those at home should close their doors and windows and store an appropriate amount of food. Switching to several other channels, all we could see were scenes of people frantically looting supermarkets. The shelves were cleared out, and a panic like never before rose up on the earth. Death was like a death warrant, urging everyone to take action. 8 hours after the zombie outbreak, I stood by the window and watched as the sun gradually set, and darkness descended. The night sky of this city had never been so dark before, and the evening wind seemed to be stronger than usual. We didn't dare to turn on the lights for fear of attracting the attention of others. The faint light from the TV illuminated the whole house. At this time, even the children's channel was broadcasting news about zombies. I urged my mother and Uncle Lee to go to sleep, and Jenny and I would keep watch through the night. Although the zombie virus hadn't spread to our area yet, we still needed to be on high alert to prevent any unexpected situations. Jenny and I agreed that I would keep watch during the first half of the night, and she would take over for the second half. 7 days after the zombie outbreak, it had been very quiet outside the community during this period. Perhaps the influence of the zombies hadn't reached us yet. Even in the places that could be seen with the telescope, no abnormalities were found. The power supply and water supply had been stable. The TV kept repeating that everyone should not panic, that we had a powerful motherland behind us, and that we should stay at home and not go out. My mother was very anxious and kept pacing around the room every day. Jenny and I didn't have much to talk about anyway. Uncle Lee sat on the sofa tinkering with that set of radio equipment. In the room, besides the sound of my mother's footsteps, there was only the buzzing sound of the radio's current. 12 days after the zombie outbreak, it was my turn to keep watch during the second half of the night today. When there was a hint of light in the sky, I checked the time and found it was only 4 a.m. even in summer. It had never dawned this early here. A bad premonition rose in my heart, suddenly. I noticed something was wrong on the street in the distance. I walked to the window and picked up the telescope to take a look. What was slowly moving on the horizon was not the light of the sun, but a dark line. As that line gradually approached, with the help of the telescope, I finally saw that it was an extremely powerful tide of zombies. They obviously came from other cities, and every single one of their bodies was extremely distorted. The zombies had really arrived. They slapped hard on the door of the convenience store by the roadside. Under the attack of countless zombies, the door was smashed open, and the zombies swarmed in. Even the stray dogs by the roadside became a delicious meal in the eyes of the zombies. Soon, some zombies broke through the railing and rushed into the community. While I was observing with the telescope, a zombie looked up in my direction. There was almost no flesh on his lips, and his white teeth were exposed. As if he was smiling at me weirdly, I took half a step back in fright. If it weren't for the one-way film pasted on the window, I would almost have thought I was discovered. When it was completely dawn, I didn't dare to open the window anymore because even on the 32nd floor, I could smell a strong stench of decay in the air. My mother and Uncle Lee got up early, seeing me standing by the window motionless. They both came over and asked me what was wrong. My goodness, what kind of monster is this? My mother's face turned pale with fright just after taking a glance. Uncle Lee's expression wasn't very good either. The zombies broke open the doors of the residence on the lower floors. I saw the old granny who often smiled at me in the community being dragged out. I quickly covered my mother's eyes. Don't look, Mom, Uncle Lee, you two don't look either. I helped the two old people sit on the sofa, holding back my nausea and trying to put on a calm expression. We've stocked up so many things. As long as we don't go out, nothing will hurt us, I said. My mother nodded in a panic. Uncle Lee frowned, and the two of them didn't go near the window for the whole day. 15 days after the zombie outbreak, the water and electricity were completely cut off. Fortunately, our solar panels began to work, so the house didn't lose power. We had stored a lot of water before, and it could definitely last until the next rain. Even so, I still reduced the water consumption of the whole family. Each person could only brush their teeth once a day and wipe their body with a wet towel. Uncle Lee still persisted in tinkering with that set of radio equipment, and my mother was responsible for planning the lunch and dinner every day. The first thing Jenny asked my mother when she woke up from making up for sleep was what we were having for dinner. My mother smiled and said we were having stewed pork ribs today. Come to think of it, my mother never prepared breakfast for Jenny and me because every time we woke up late, it was already noon. Unconsciously, we were saving food for the family. My mother came out of the kitchen with a large pot of pork ribs. The soft and glutinous stewed pork ribs exuded a strong aroma. The reddish-brown color of the sugar made the pork ribs even more appetizing, and there was a layer of white sesame seeds sprinkled on top. It almost makes my nose fall off with the fragrance, Jenny said. Our family sat happily at the table. At this moment, outside the window, the zombies were still tirelessly crashing into the doors of the residence on the lower floors, and one living person after another became their lunch. 32 days after the zombie outbreak. Just 1 month after the zombie outbreak, I clearly felt that the daytime hours were decreasing, and the energy collected by the solar panels was also less than it was a month ago. It rained twice during this period, which just filled the consumption of our daily water use. We no longer used the squatting pans and toilets. Instead, we used a plastic bucket to go to the toilet on the rooftop. The feces dried naturally and wouldn't bring us any unpleasant smells. At dinner time, my mother cooked 15 dumplings for each of us. Jenny was tirelessly reading a romantic novel and was absent-minded while eating the dumplings. Uncle Lee was also watching an amazing anti-Japanese war drama with headphones on. He had now accepted the behavior of having a meal while watching TV dramas. I was still calculating the consumption of food, water, and electricity. My mother, with the greatest piety towards food, sat upright and ate. The only sound in the room was the sound of us swallowing the dumplings. Suddenly, the radio placed on the coffee table buzzed. Once, we all looked up, glanced at the radio, and then looked at Uncle Lee. "Old man, is this radio broken?" my mother asked. This radio was newly bought, except when Uncle Lee usually debugged it. It had never made a sound. Jenny and I looked at each other and felt that something was wrong. No one said anything, and we all stared at the radio without moving. Zizzing, the noisy sound suddenly filled the room. It was obviously no longer an ordinary minor malfunction. "Hello," a human voice came from the radio. A cold sweat broke out on my back. The occupancy rate of this community was not high in the first place, and many households had been broken into by zombies during this period. There weren't many people living within the range of the radio's projection. "Hello, zizzing." The current was intermittent, and a young man's voice came through. "My name is Max, and I have no ill intentions." Our family didn't say anything. Everyone knew that exposing ourselves at this time was completely a suicidal act. "My home is on the 11th floor of Building 6. I searched for this radio before. Please reply if you receive this." The current gradually stabilized, and the other party's voice was also very clear. We didn't reply to him. I shook my head at Uncle Lee and my mother, hoping that this person would give up on us soon. But the other party was obviously very certain of our existence and said anxiously, "I really have no ill intentions. Please believe me. My mother is 52 years old this year. She suddenly had angina pectoris and now needs quick-acting nitroglycerin. Please help me." My mother frowned and didn't dare to make a decision. Although we didn't deliberately stock up on quick-acting nitroglycerin when we were stocking up, I knew that my mother always kept these medicines. "Please. The situation is really urgent now. If you have the medicine, please reply to me." The other party spoke very quickly and pleaded with us with a sobbing voice. My mother and Jenny both looked at me. Obviously, it was up to me to make a decision now. As long as I pressed the red button on the radio, the existence of our whole family would be completely exposed. But we were talking about saving a life now. Uncle Lee, who hadn't spoken all this time, finally said, "Jane, give them the medicine." I looked up at the door. That door had strong protective power, but should we really take this risk? After a long moment of silence, I still pressed that red button. "Hello, we have quick-acting nitroglycerin," I said briefly. The other party obviously let out a sigh of relief and quickly said, "Please tell me the address, and I'll send a drone to pick it up." Soon, the buzzing sound of the drone came from the balcony. The camera of the drone wasn't facing us, and the other party clearly showed that they didn't want to pry into the situation of our home. I tied the medicine to the drone, and it quickly flew away. Sitting on the sofa, I couldn't eat the dumplings anymore and was still very worried about what had just happened. If this Max could search for the radio in our home, what about others? Just as I was thinking, the sound of the drone rang out again. I ran to the balcony and saw that this time the drone was clumsily dragging a box, and there was a piece of paper pasted on it. I quickly took it down to check. It read, "Thank you very much. The quick-acting nitroglycerin was very useful, and my mother's condition has stabilized. There is a new drone in this box. Please be sure to accept it." I thought it was impossible not to accept it because the drone that had just come to deliver the thing had already left, 53 days after the zombie outbreak. It had been almost 3 months since the zombie outbreak, and the food that many people had stocked up on had already been consumed. There were also people in the community who had the idea of going out to find supplies. Some people chose to go out at night when the zombies moved slowly, but most of them didn't come back. Some people deliberately made noises to attract the zombies and then sent people out, but this method wasn't reliable either. The zombies in the community could be attracted, but what about the zombies outside the community? I had observed that some zombies would accidentally walk into the underground garage, and it was now almost impossible to go in and drive a car. The temperature this year was also very abnormal. Autumn came especially early, and the temperature dropped significantly. This winter might be more difficult to endure than any previous winter. My mother, seeing that the fat on our bodies was piling up more and more, set a exercise time for us. The so-called exercise was to walk from the living room to the bedroom and then from the bedroom to the living room. We had to walk 500 circles every day, and those who didn't reach the step count wouldn't have dinner. Ouch, I really can't walk anymore. I'm not walking. Jenny collapsed on the sofa and rolled her eyes at me and my mother. My mother wasn't angry at all. "If you don't walk, you won't have dinner." Jenny didn't care. She wanted to rely on the snacks I had stocked up on before for dinner. Was my mother so easy to fool? She huffed and puffed and moved all the things that didn't need to be cooked to her own room and then locked the door. Jenny let out a wail and reluctantly stood up to walk again. 82 days after the zombie outbreak, the weather had completely turned cold. When I was keeping watch at night, I tightly wrapped myself in the blanket. I had already gotten tired of playing the small games that I had downloaded on my phone before. I couldn't turn on the lights at night and couldn't read a book, so I just sat on the sofa blankly with that radio in front of me. Come to think of it, since Max came to borrow the medicine last time, we had turned off this radio, and there was a thick layer of dust on it. I pressed the switch, and a noisy current sound came out. Afraid of disturbing my mother and the others' sleep, I took out the headphones and connected them to the radio. I gently turned on that red button and tentatively said, "Hello, hello." An answer came immediately from the other side. I trembled in fright, but then I remembered that it was Max's voice. I pretended to be calm and said, "Aren't you asleep?" Max let out a soft laugh and then said in a gentle voice, "Just like you, I'm keeping watch at night." How did he know I was keeping watch? Oh, at this time, if it wasn't something urgent. Everyone should be keeping watch. How did you find the radio in our home before? I asked. Max's breathing sound came through. I suddenly regretted buying such a high-precision radio. This kind of breathing sound really made people have all sorts of associations. When I was stocking up, I bought a lot of electronic devices. After the zombie outbreak, I took them out to study and accidentally found it, Max said. Besides the radio in our home, are there any other devices? No. Max was very certain. When I found the device in your home, it was like finding a lighthouse while sailing in the dark sea. As a result, you actually turned off the device. Why did this tone sound a bit resentful? I raised my eyebrows and chose to avoid this question. Did you stock up on supplies? Are you a prophet? Max wasn't to be outdone. What about you? Are you a prophet too? Oops, I really am a prophet. Seeing that I didn't answer, Max said to himself. I used to study in Country M and majored in biology. Then I suddenly received an instruction from my superiors, saying that the zombie virus had leaked, so I fled overnight and returned to the embrace of my motherland. Then I met you. Even though I could only hear this person's voice, my face instantly turned red. In the past 20-something years, I first came out of a small mountain village, studied hard in university, and after graduation, I found a job with a high salary but a lot of troubles. I hadn't had a moment of leisure, so until now, I was still a virgin who had never been in a relationship. Suddenly having a boy talk to me like this made me not know how to place my limbs. My long silence didn't seem to affect Max's mood. He said, "I'm on duty during the first half of the night on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, and during the second half of the night on Sundays. You can hang up the radio." Who wants to hang up the radio with you? The 100th day after the zombie outbreak, our family's radio hasn't been turned off during this period. It seems that the other 3 people in the family don't object to the radio. Sometimes my mother even chats with Max's mother about daily matters. When the 2 of them are happy chatting, they will also make some food and send it to each other. Max's mother is from Guangdong, and the taste of the food she makes is completely different from that made by my mother, who is from Southwest China. From this day on, the dishes on our table have never been repeated. The orientation of Max's house is exactly the opposite of ours, so that we can monitor the situations on both sides at the same time, and everyone is quite satisfied with this. However, except for me and Max, no one knows that we still chat when keeping watch at night. Max said that there are also 4 people in his family, besides him, his parents. There is also a younger brother who is in high school. Wow, a high school younger brother. Can you introduce him to me? I said with a smile. Max was silent for a moment and then said, "Aren't I enough for you?" My and Max's night watch times are astonishingly similar. From this day on, keeping watch no longer seems to be such an unpleasant thing. The 149th day after the zombie outbreak, in the blink of an eye, almost half a year has passed, and winter has officially arrived. Usually, the winter here is only around 2 or 3 degrees Celsius, but this year it has miraculously dropped to -5 degrees Celsius. When I got up in the morning, I saw snow falling from the sky for the first time. I wrapped my down jacket tightly around me and added 2 more warm baby pads for myself. The zombies seem to be very afraid of the cold and are all huddled in the corners without moving. Plus, they haven't eaten for a long time, so even if they move, they are very slow. Finally, Uncle Lee and I discussed and decided to turn on the heating air conditioner, and the temperature in the room became a little more bearable. Jenny is young and full of energy. She runs around without wearing a coat. Damn it, Jenny, put on your coat. What if you catch a cold? Uncle Lee nags Jenny 800 times a day. And Jenny has already become very thick-skinned. She gave us a sideways glance. All wrapped up like Zongzi, mumbled, "It's none of your business," and walked away. The 153rd day after the zombie outbreak. As expected, Jenny caught a cold. The medicine reserves at home are still relatively sufficient. I took some cold medicine for her based on my limited medical knowledge. My mother said that Jenny caught a chill, and just taking medicine would make her recover slowly. After thinking about it, I went to the kitchen and cooked a bowl of fruit porridge for her. I brought it to Jenny's bedside. She glanced at it and mumbled, "Who asked you to meddle in my business?" However, her body was honest, and she obediently took the porridge and sipped it. I had nothing to do during the day, so I simply tidied up the things in Jenny's room. Although Jenny has a cold, she is in good spirits. Wherever I go, her eyes follow me, just like a child watching a teacher perform a show. Then she seemed to suddenly remember something. "Hey, are you talking to Max on the radio at night?" I mechanically turned my head, and the things in my hand fell to the ground accordingly. Was I discovered for the first time talking to a boy at midnight? Seeing my stunned expression, Jenny rolled her eyes. "Come on, we're not junior high school students anymore. I won't tell your mom. Anyway, I'm not like some people who are still single even at a certain age." I immediately grasped the key point of this sentence. "Oh, you have a little boyfriend," Jenny said openly. "Of course, my boyfriend is very nice. He's also from this city." She paused for a moment, and then her expression became a little unnatural. "I don't know how he's doing after the zombie outbreak has lasted for so long. In this troubled world, no one can guarantee how others are doing. It's already against the odds that I've managed to protect my family with my prophetic ability." I walked over and patted Jenny's shoulder. "Don't worry. Everyone has their own destiny." Seeing her disappointed expression, I added, "Everything will be okay." Jenny curled up on the bed with her face in her hands. It wasn't until I was about to walk out of the door with the bowl that she whispered, "Thank you, sister." This is the first time Jenny has called me sister since I moved into Jenny's family with my mother all these years. The 199th day after the zombie outbreak. The weather is extremely cold, and the daytime hours have shrunk drastically. The power supply from the solar panels is seriously insufficient. We can only reduce the time we use the air conditioner to barely meet our daily electricity needs. My mother took out all the down jackets and cotton-padded clothes at home. Each of us is wrapped in at least 6 pieces of clothing. Learning from the lesson of her last cold, Jenny even draped a blanket over herself. In the evening, there are faint signs of snow again. My mother finally decided that we would have hot pot today. The beef tallow base of the hot pot is gurgling. I quickly picked up a slice of tripe, blanched it in the pot for more than 10 seconds, and then stuffed it into my mouth. The crispy texture shocked my taste buds. Then came the shrimp paste, spicy beef. Just as our family was enjoying the meal, the radio rang again. I ran over to answer it, but I didn't plug in the earphones. Max's gentle voice with a bubbly tone sounded. "What are you doing?" I quickly looked back at the 3 people at the table. Fortunately, everyone was focused on eating, and no one noticed Max's extremely attractive voice. "We're having hot pot. My mom said it's too cold, so we're having something warm to eat," I said. We had instant boiled mutton at home today. It seems that the 2 moms thought of the same thing. He chuckled softly. It seemed that he was doing something with his hands, and his tone was a bit casual. "By the way, I sent you something. Go and check on the balcony," Max suddenly said. I rushed to the balcony in a hurry. The drone just flew over, and a small box was hanging underneath it. I reached out and took it. It was a small jewelry box. When I opened it, there was a pink little pig ring inside. It was obvious that it was a handmade ceramic product. I went back to the radio and this time I remembered to plug in the earphones. "It's a little pig ring." "Yes. Sending a little pig to a little pig." His tone was filled with a smile. My mother finally noticed that I wasn't at the table when she was cooking the second batch of vegetables. She waved her hand. "Jane, come and eat quickly." "Okay, coming." I put down the radio. The 219th day after the zombie outbreak. Now everyone's storylines have come out. The only question is who is the person who slashed the knife on the deceased's neck. Max's younger brother Jack said. I remember Jenny only poisoned one person. And she even poisoned the wrong person, right? Max said. I vote for Jenny, Max said. I quickly added, I vote for Jenny too. Uncle Lee immediately said, I also think Jenny looks the most like the murderer. Jack thought for a while. Except for Jenny, I don't seem to have any other candidates, but I think Jane also looks like the murderer. Wasn't she the last person to see the deceased? Max's father chimed in. Jenny, who was unanimously suspected by everyone, also jumped out and said in a hurry, that's right, Jane is also highly suspected. She seems to have an unknown identity. Finally, after the vote, I got 2 votes and Jenny got 4 votes. The minority obeyed the majority, and Jenny was arrested as the murderer. Today is New Year's Eve, the last day of this year. Since there is no Spring Festival gala to watch, Jenny suggested playing a script murder game. At first, it was just me, Jenny, Max, and Jack, but at our strong request, Uncle Lee and Max's father also joined. The 2 mothers were preparing the New Year's Eve dinner. Sometimes when they were too busy, they would ask us to pause the game and go to help. Finally, before the dinner started, we reached the final stage of voting for the murderer. Then, now let's turn to the last page of the script and see who the murderer really is. Jack elongated the ending sound, filling the air with a sense of suspense. The murderer is. Everyone gathered closely around the radio, listening to the voice coming from it. The masked lady, Jane. I said it wasn't me. Jenny jumped onto the sofa and roared. Moreover, the masked lady has an accomplice. He is. Jack obviously froze when he saw the script, and then wailed plaintively. He is the bard, Max. Ah. Everyone except me and Max shouted in despair. I walked to the middle of the living room and made a standard expression of a villain. Sister, I'm just that invincible. My mother finally brought the braised meatballs to the table. Seeing me, Jenny, and Uncle Lee dancing around like crazy in the living room, she shouted in a strong voice, it's time to eat, stop fooling around. We quickly said goodbye to Max and his father and son, and sat at the table neatly. We still didn't dare to turn on the lights too brightly, but the dim yellow light revealed the faces of the 4 of us. Suddenly, I felt that it was really nice to be with my family. The zombies couldn't find any living people in the community, so they had to leave. Now there are no living things downstairs except for a mess. Looking out of the window, unlike the New Year in previous years when the lights were bright, there are no lights in thousands of homes, and there are no sounds of firecrackers. There is only darkness and silence left. The 281st day after the zombie outbreak. The rapid progress between me and Max has already been known by both of our parents. The truth is that one night I was holding the radio alone and secretly laughing because of a joke told by Max. At that time, my mother got up to use the toilet. Then she thought I was crazy and called Uncle Lee and Jenny up together to ask if I had stayed at home for too long and got sick. Jenny sat aside with an unstoppable smile on her face, looking like, the couple I'm shipping is going to be together. Under my mother's interrogation, I finally pulled out the earphones in despair and let Max explain the matter to my mother, while I curled up in a corner of the sofa like an ostrich. The next day, my mother chatted with Max's mother on the radio for a whole day. Both sets of parents are quite satisfied. So during this period, whenever my mother is free, she and Max's mother discuss everything from how to plan the wedding to how many children to have. Is this going too fast? Max also occasionally comes up with some small surprises, including cutting the flowers that Max's mother has been raising for a long time and giving them to me. Later, Jack secretly told us that Max's mother didn't talk to Max for 3 days. The weather is gradually warming up, and we finally took off our down jackets, but at the same time, we are worried that there might be extremely high temperatures in summer. One day, when I was sitting on the sofa watching a drama, the sound of a drone came from outside. I originally thought that Max's drone was coming to deliver something, but then Jenny suddenly shouted, Sister, sister, come and take a look. I rushed to the balcony at once, but I saw at least dozens of drones slowly entering our community. Dear residents, there was something hanging on each drone, and one of them was equipped with a speaker. We are here to deliver supplies to you. Please, residents who need supplies, hang a bed sheet on the window and wave it. I picked up the telescope and took a look. There was a bright red national flag pasted on the drone. These are government drones. We haven't been abandoned. Soon, some residents hung bed sheets on the windows and waved them frantically. The drones quickly flew over and left some compressed biscuits and water. Jenny asked me if we wanted supplies. After thinking about it, our family still has abundant reserves, and it's better not to expose ourselves easily. I observed that Max also didn't ask for supplies. I guess he was considering the same thing as me. The drones stayed for a while and then prepared to go to the next location to distribute supplies. Before leaving, they broadcasted, "Please rest assured, the country is actively considering countermeasures. Please continue to hold on. Don't lose heart. Soon, we will be able to defeat the virus and return to normal life." Some zombies heard the sound and also came from not far away, squeezing in the yard and waving their broken hands and feet, trying to reach the drones. They look more terrifying than when the zombies first broke out, but I still have confidence. I think all this will end soon, the 346th day after the zombie outbreak. The weather is getting hotter and more sweltering, although the sunshine hours are long. It's still not enough for us to use the air conditioner all day, so Uncle Lee restricted the time we can use the air conditioner for the whole family. My mother cooked mung bean soup and gave each of us a bowl. She also filled a thermos with a pot of it and sent it to Max. After drinking the mung bean soup, Jack's mind cooled down, and he came up with a naughty idea to hold a cooling-off session for us. Just then, the female lead suddenly bent down to look under the bed. A pair of pale white eyes stared straight at her. Jenny was so scared that she shrank on the sofa and trembled, having already forgotten how hot the weather was. This is Jack's way of cooling off, telling ghost stories. Humph, can such a story that deceives children scare us adults? "Sister, your hands are shaking with fear," Jenny said, the 374th day after the zombie outbreak. I woke up with a start. The bed sheet had been soaked with sweat, but I didn't care about that. I rushed to the living room in a hurry. Jenny looked at me in confusion. Before she could ask, I frantically knocked on my mother's and Uncle Lee's bedroom doors. "Mom, Uncle Lee, hurry up, hurry up." My mother and Uncle Lee also rushed to the living room in a hurry and looked at me with my hair disheveled. "What's wrong, Jane? Why is your face so red? Do you have a fever?" I shook my head. My mind was in chaos. I had another prophetic dream. My mother held my hand, looking extremely worried. Even Jenny beside me was obviously frightened by me. This dream was more chaotic than the previous three, but it was also more real. I heard a very sharp sound, saw a flash of cold light, and finally the scene froze on Jenny's face. "That's right, Jenny, I clearly remember the last scene. A huge axe was about to fall, and under the axe was Jenny, covered in blood. I was screaming, and there were hordes of zombies around. I told them about this dream, and everyone fell silent, up to now. My 3 prophecies have all been matters of life and death, and I have never made a mistake. However, we have been carefully stocking up on supplies and covering up our tracks. As long as we don't step out of this door, there is absolutely no possibility of danger." Jenny's words were a bit slurred. "Sister, could it be that you've been looking at the zombies on the balcony too much recently, so this is just an ordinary dream?" I shook my head. I can clearly feel every prophecy. This is something that is about to happen, and an ordinary dream doesn't give me this kind of feeling. It was still not dawn, and we only turned on a small lamp. I was very scared. Then Jane, do you know when this dream will come true? Uncle Lee couldn't calm down either and stared at my face and asked. I shook my head. This was the first time that I dreamed of the future, but there was no clear time indication. But I could feel that it would happen in the near future, soon. My mother murmured to herself, with a somewhat empty look in her eyes, the 399th day after the zombie outbreak. During this period, the atmosphere at home has been very gloomy, and the weather is hotter than we can imagine. The air is like cooked glutinous rice, so sticky that it makes people feel uncomfortable. But what's even more frustrating is that prophecy. When will it happen? Who will be holding an axe and trying to harm us? Will we die? We don't know any of these things. I've also tried to recall that dream, but I can't remember anything. Our family discussed and decided not to tell Max about this. The fewer people involved, the better. When Max talked to me on the radio, he also noticed my low spirits, although he didn't know why. He has been taking good care of my emotions. As the weather gets hotter, the zombies are becoming more and more agitated. Even though they haven't eaten for a long time, they are moving very quickly. the 423rd day after the zombie outbreak, I was sitting on the sofa, taking out a book to read. My mother was teaching Jenny how to cook in the kitchen, and Uncle Lee was studying chess. It was an ordinary afternoon. At this moment, a huge crashing sound came from downstairs. I rushed to the balcony in a hurry to take a look and saw a huge pickup truck crashing through the gate of the community. 5 burly men got out of the truck, each of them had a weapon in their hand, and the leader was holding a big axe. My heart skipped a beat. An axe. In the prophecy, the last scene showed an axe slashing towards Jenny. The other 3 people in the house heard the commotion and also rushed over to check. Jenny picked up the telescope but suddenly let out a scream. "What's wrong with you?" I thought Jenny's reaction was a bit strange. Jenny was obviously flustered, and her cheeks turned red visibly. She grabbed my arm, and her body couldn't stop trembling. Sister, didn't I tell you before that I had a boyfriend?" Her voice became smaller and smaller, and my mood started to turn solemn. "Is your boyfriend among those people?" I asked her. Uncle Lee and my mother also became anxious. "Why is he here, and why is he carrying such a big axe?" Jenny mumbled and couldn't say anything for a long time. "Hurry up and tell us, otherwise, even the gods can't save you." I had never been so nervous before, and my voice involuntarily became louder. Jenny was obviously frightened by me, and she was so anxious that tears were about to fall. Before you dreamed of the zombie outbreak, I reminded him to protect himself. I widened my eyes, in order to ensure that this prophecy wouldn't be leaked and cause unnecessary trouble. I even lied to my mother and Uncle Lee, telling them to come to the city quickly. As a result, Jenny blurted out this matter without thinking. Anger and panic shook my emotions. "Then why is he here?" Jenny obviously didn't expect me to be so angry, and her body trembled even more violently. I told him to stock up on some things, but he didn't believe me. I said our family had stocked up. "Did you also tell him our home address?" I narrowed my eyes and tightly pinched Jenny's arm. Jenny finally couldn't hold it back and burst into tears. "I know I was wrong, okay?" I was so angry that I couldn't stop my body from trembling. It was bad enough that she leaked the prophecy, but she also told others our home address and the news about our stockpiled goods. This is like directly telling people that our family has things and inviting them to come and rob us. Uncle Lee was so angry that he beat his chest and stamped his feet. My mother picked up the telescope and continued to observe. Suddenly, she turned around, and her voice was a bit shaky. "Jane, they are coming towards our building." I immediately looked down. Sure enough, those people were walking this way and killed the zombies that rushed towards them in the community like cutting watermelons. I quickly rushed into the bedroom, took out the watermelon knives and bone-chopping knives we bought before, locked the door, and turned off the radio to prevent it from suddenly connecting and making a sound. The elevator had already been cut off by Uncle Lee and me before. They could only climb the stairs. I just hoped that the height of the 32nd floor could consume their physical strength as much as possible. As time passed by, Uncle Lee and I stood guard inside the door, ready for anything. Just then, my phone suddenly let out a huge alarm sound. It was the alarm from the infrared sensor I installed downstairs before. Someone passed by and triggered it. I quickly turned off the alarm, and my heart had never beaten so fast. Bang! A dull sound of knocking on the door broke the silence. I knew this was the sound of them knocking on the emergency passage door. The emergency passage door itself is very thick, and it is also chained with a large iron chain and sealed with thick wooden boards. But with that huge axe in their hands, it won't take long for them to break through the emergency passage. By then, the only thing that can protect us is this super heavy anti-theft door in front of us. Jenny, it's Noah." A man's shout came. I turned around and looked at the stunned Jenny. It seemed that I was right. The person outside the door was Jenny's boyfriend. "Honey, open the door. I'm going to be bitten to death by the zombies. Have some pity on me." The whole family didn't make a sound, praying that Noah and his group would leave quickly. Bang, bang, bang. The increasingly dense knocking on the door made it almost impossible for me to think, and my hand holding the bone-chopping knife was sweating. "Noah, it seems that there's no one here. Did you make a mistake?" a young voice asked. "It's impossible. That stupid Jenny told me this was the place. She said her cheap sister had stocked up at least 2 or 3 years' worth of food." Noah's voice wasn't as loud as before, but I standing at the door could hear it clearly. Jenny might as well have given Noah the inventory list of our stockpiled goods. This family must be playing dumb inside. Damn it, smash it. Another rough voice sounded. As soon as they said it, they started to act. The sound of the axe hitting the iron door was like a wild beast roaring in my ear. Dull but extremely lethal. Jenny, open the door. They were still shouting Jenny's name while smashing the door vigorously. My mind was almost in a mess. In our family, there are only 2 young girls without much strength, plus 2 old people. On the other side are tall and strong men with highly lethal weapons in their hands. Our only reliance is these 2 doors. I will never let them break the emergency passage door, otherwise, we will be in danger. At the moment, there is still old duck soup being stewed in a pressure cooker on my mother's stove. I gritted my teeth, rushed into the kitchen, tightly blocked the air vent of the pressure cooker with a rag, and turned the fire on high. My eyes were fixed on the wall clock, and I was frantically calculating the critical point in my heart. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds. Now, I picked up the pressure cooker and rushed to the balcony. At this time, my mother quickly opened the window. The moment I threw the pressure cooker out of the window, it exploded. The huge sound made my ears intermittently deaf, after a bout of tinnitus. The sound of knocking on the door also stopped. I quickly carried out the manure bucket from the bathroom and threw it out of the balcony. Did you hear that? What was that sound? Noah asked at the door, his tone a bit panicked. The others didn't know what it was either, and they stopped their action of smashing the door. Should we send 2 people down to take a look, in case there's something wrong? The rough voice from before said. After discussing for a while, they finally decided to send 2 people down to check, and the remaining 3 continued to guard at the door. What they didn't know in the dark emergency passage was that the huge sound and smell would quickly attract the surrounding zombies. In just a few minutes, there were at least 20 zombies downstairs. Anyone who goes down at this moment would be sending themselves to their deaths. I asked Uncle Lee to continue guarding at the door, and I ran to the balcony to check. Soon, those 2 people appeared at the stairway. The hungry zombies opened their huge mouths and rushed forward. The 2 people hardly had time to resist before they were torn apart until only their bones were left. They didn't even have time to turn into zombies before they were eaten without a trace. I went back to the door. The 3 people didn't continue to smash the door but were waiting for the 2 who went downstairs, but they wouldn't be coming back. After a long time, the rough voice finally couldn't hold his temper. Damn it, what are those 2 people doing? Do they need to take so long? Noah was also a bit uncertain and asked, Victor, it's been long enough for them to go up and down the stairs 2 or 3 times. Could those 2 brats have run away? The person called Victor obviously didn't believe it. Run away. They can't live without me. How dare they run away? Yes, yes. Victor is right, then. Victor's voice also became synced down. They haven't come back for so long. Could it be? Are they dead? There was a strange silence at the door, and I also became nervous. This Victor is not an easy person to deal with, even without 2 helpers. He will definitely not let us go easily, and our family still has no chance of winning against these 3 people. Damn it, Victor cursed. Then, a loud bang came from the emergency passage door. It was probably someone kicking it hard. Forget about them, let's continue smashing. Whether we live or die, we'll leave it to fate. Victor howled in anger. Bang, a louder sound of smashing the door came. Each blow was like hitting my heart. I could hardly breathe, and sweat beads rolled down my forehead. These 3 people are too difficult to deal with. It's impossible to trick them downstairs with the same method as before, although the sound of smashing the door is very loud. After losing 2 labor forces, their speed has obviously slowed down, but I'm afraid that door won't hold up for much longer. My mother was holding a watermelon knife in her hand, but her hands were already trembling. Even Uncle Lee, who is usually so calm, was sweating profusely, and Jenny was shrinking in the corner, shivering. I really wanted to kick her out and let Noah and Victor deal with her. The sky slowly started to get dark, and the light in the room was obviously insufficient. I could no longer see Uncle Lee's face clearly even though he was close to me. These few hours were extremely torturous. Just as I was about to sit back on the sofa to take a rest, the emergency passage door suddenly made a strange sound, changing from dull to sharp. Crunch. The door was broken through, and the wooden boards were also damaged. Oh no, Uncle Lee couldn't control his expression anymore and looked at me in horror. My mother almost fainted. Finally opened Noah shouted and ran to my door. Huh, such a new door. There must be someone inside. Victor, you were right. This family is indeed playing the coward inside. The door in front of me was being slapped frantically. Jenny, open the door for me right now. It was completely dark. Jenny pulled me aside. Sister, how about we open the door for them? This can't go on like this. When they come in, they will definitely just take a little food and leave, I sneered. Just take a little food and leave. Jenny, you're too naive. Did I stockpile so many things for you to eat just to make you so full that you can't even think properly? There were tears in Jenny's eyes, and she didn't argue with me as sharply as usual. This time, she really couldn't say anything. On Noah and Victor's side, since they couldn't knock the door open, they were going to smash it again, but after climbing the stairs, smashing the emergency passage door, and not having enough nutrition for a long time, they were already exhausted. The super heavy anti-theft door of my house was made when we were stockpiling goods. It definitely couldn't be smashed open in a short time. Sure enough, after trying for more than 10 minutes at the door, they finally couldn't stand it anymore and stopped smashing the door. It was already very dark, and they hadn't had dinner. Soon, these people discussed at the door and decided to go back to the car to rest and continue smashing the door tomorrow. Hearing these people walking away one after another, I let out a sigh of relief. I went to the balcony to check and saw that it was indeed 3 people who went downstairs. The zombies that came here after hearing the sound had scattered a bit. There weren't many zombies downstairs. These 3 people also found the bodies of their companions, after dealing with a few zombies. They didn't clean up the bodies but walked straight towards the pickup truck. It seems that their relationship is also very fragile and can break easily. My mother's face turned pale with fright. She walked into the kitchen without saying a word, heated up some leftovers, and we ate them hastily. No one said anything. Tomorrow will be a tough battle. While eating, I was thinking about countermeasures. Jane, you're too tired today. Go and rest first. I'll keep watch during the first half of the night, Uncle Lee said, and then he looked at Jenny and was a bit disappointed with her. Jenny will keep watch during the second half of the night. You are the pillar of our family, and you need to rest well. I didn't refuse. I was too tired today and really didn't have the energy to keep watch at night anymore. I went back to my room and fell asleep as soon as I lay down. The 424th day after the zombie outbreak, in the middle of the night. I put my phone beside the bed and was sleeping soundly when the alarm suddenly rang. I woke up with a start and looked at the phone. It was the alarm from the infrared sensor. Could it be that Noah and the others came back? I didn't even have time to put on my clothes. I rushed to the living room but didn't see anyone. Strange, usually those who keep watch sit in the living room, right? After waiting for a few minutes, there was no sound outside the door either. The house was extremely quiet. It was 4 a.m., the second half of the night. I suddenly thought of something and checked both my room and Jenny's room. There was no one there. Jenny went out. I quickly rushed into my mother's and Uncle Lee's room. Mom, Uncle Lee, Jenny is gone. The 2 old people also woke up with a start. We all went to the living room together and found that 1 watermelon knife and a set of protective gear were missing. Jenny was very likely to have run out to find Noah. Oh, this damn Jenny is so worrying. Uncle Lee slapped his thigh, and tears fell from his eyes. I gritted my teeth. After all, Jenny is my stepsister, and I can't just ignore her. Mom, Uncle Lee, you stay at home. I'll go find her. I put on a full set of protective gear for myself, picked up the bone-chopping knife, took one last look at my mother and Uncle Lee, and opened the door and went out. I quickly passed through the dark emergency passage, and the sound of my feet stepping on the stairs echoed in the space. As I got closer to the first floor, I heard sounds outside, very scattered but also very intense. I'll kill you, a sharp female voice sounded. It was Jenny's voice. I didn't care about anything else anymore and ran down quickly. The moment I stepped out of the unit door, a rotten face with protruding eyeballs suddenly appeared in front of me, a zombie. I instinctively waved the machete. Not far away at this moment, I saw Jenny stabbing a watermelon knife into a man's chest. The other 2 men had just dealt with the zombie beside them. When they turned around, they found their companion was dead. They ran over quickly, raised their knives and slashed towards Jenny. Jenny resisted fiercely, but under the pincer attack of the 2 men from the front and the back, she inevitably took several severe slashes on her arms and back. Blood spurted out. And in just over 10 seconds, Jenny was covered in blood and flesh. I held my nerve and quietly approached from the bushes beside. Jenny waved the knife wildly, and one of the men was hit in the thigh. Instantly, the skin and flesh split open, and the white bone was exposed. The man winced in pain and instinctively bent over to check. Just at this moment, I jumped up from the woods and hacked hard on the man's back. He fell to the ground directly without even having time to make a sound, however. Jenny was kicked down by the other man and was sent flying 1 or 2 meters away. The man rushed forward, raised the axe high, and with a flash of cold light, it was about to fall. That dream, I desperately ran forward and waved the bone-chopping knife in the opposite direction of the axe. Clang! The two knives collided violently in the air. At that moment, my hand was broken, and both the axe and the bone-chopping knife flew out due to the loss of strength at the same time. I lost my balance and fell on Jenny, who was already covered in blood. The man opposite also staggered a few steps. When he saw me, his expression twisted instantly. He rushed over and picked up the axe, and then rushed towards me again at a rapid pace. Jenny and I were about to become the victims of that axe. Just then, a knife appeared out of thin air and instantly pierced through the man's heart. He widened his eyes in disbelief, and the axe fell to the ground. The man was dead. And his body fell down. Behind him holding the knife was a young man with a gentle face, but there was unexpectedly a look of determination on his face. I couldn't get in touch with you all day. When I heard the noise, I knew something was wrong with you, he said panting. This voice was Max's. My tears welled up instantly, and I stared blankly at Max. I didn't expect that when I met him for the first time, I was in such a mess. And my hand was broken too. He smiled at me and said, "This isn't the time to be in a daze. Look." Following his hand, I saw a large number of zombies that had come because they heard the noise. I forced myself to pick up the bone-chopping knife with my left hand and stood side by side with Max. "Let's get married after the zombies are eliminated," Max said. I pursed my lips and didn't say anything. We both rushed forward at the same time and fought against the enemy with all our might. We consumed a great deal of physical strength. There were too many zombies, and we also had to protect Jenny, who had lost consciousness. More and more zombies gathered. We dragged Jenny and fought while retreating, but this was approaching our limit. "We're going to die," I said as I slashed a zombie to death, and the slime splashed all over Max and me. "No, we won't," Max said firmly. The dark mass of zombies blocked the front. I rushed to the corner and closed my eyes, ready to wait for death. Just then, gunshots rang out. There was a continuous burst of gunfire, and large numbers of zombies fell in front of my eyes. The bullets whistled past my ears. In the distance, a large group of people in camouflage uniforms were approaching with their guns raised. The zombies quickly lost their resistance. I watched as the last zombie finally fell to the ground and let out a long sigh of relief. Several soldiers ran over and saluted me. "Hello. You weren't bitten by the zombies just now, were you?" I was too tired to speak and could only shake my head weakly. "We were sent by the country to clean up the zombies. Don't worry, the country will restore order soon. Be strong," the soldier said. "Yes, we have a powerful motherland behind us." The military doctor came to bandage the wounds of Jenny, Max, and me, and also set my broken hand back in place. Several military vehicles were parked at the entrance of the community, and the soldiers were doing the final cleaning in the community. 1 or 2 of the soldiers helped Max send Jenny and me up to the 32nd floor. When my mother saw us, tears streamed down her face. "My dreams have never been wrong. I must save myself quickly within this month." "No way, we can't accept your rations." The soldier waved his hand at us. I argued with them for a long time, and after much persuasion, I finally managed to give the things to them. The soldiers bid us farewell and left with a large bag of instant food. Max couldn't stay for long as he also had his parents at home. I walked him to the door, took a deep look at his face for the last time, and said, "Okay." Max looked at me in confusion. "What's okay? Let's get married after the zombies are eliminated." Max smiled, and the corners of his eyes curved. "Okay." I closed the door and walked to the balcony. The soldiers were still cleaning up the zombies building by building and also delivering food to some residents who had run out of water and food. They collected the bodies in the corridors and the yard, dug a big pit, threw them in, and set them on fire. After dealing with everything, when it was just getting light, the soldiers left. I went back to bed and fell into a deep sleep. on January 3, 2024. The zombies were completely eliminated in our country, the water and electricity were restored. And the disinfection was completed. We walked out of the tightly closed door again and enjoyed the sunshine without any worries. Although the zombies have been completely eliminated in our country, many countries in the world are still in extreme danger, international round trips are still not allowed, and the situation of border security is still severe. We hardly have any relatives or friends left. In just 2 years, the population of our country has decreased by nearly 70%, with the blessings of the neighbors in the community. Max and I got married, and the location was chosen in the yard of the community. My mother and Max's mother took care of everything and cooked a lot of dishes. Jenny was my bridesmaid. After going back that time, she sincerely admitted her mistake to me and tried her best to change herself. Now, she has found a job in the city and moved out to live on her own. Just as Uncle Lee predicted, due to the severe economic damage, the previous currency has also been discontinued. Max has been cooperating with the country and has been doing research work related to zombies. While I'm at home writing down our story like a diary, Max asked me when I would submit this article to the publishing house. I said I would wait a little longer. As for what I'm waiting for, it has something to do with a recent dream. Yes, it's also a prophecy. This prophecy is quite good because soon, a new life will be born in our family.